Masa Moro de Nebi Gasuwa Muna Figura Matuma Yamawa Yamawa
Hold on, where's the link? Just let me know when we're live, bro.
I think he said we're live.
I think we're live.
Yeah, we're live.
We're live now?
I think so.
Can you share the link in the all school chat, please?
Oh shit, we're live.
Yeah, we are live. Ujjayi, and welcome to the Gated Gates podcast. We just wanted to make sure that everything was going well. We just had a few technical difficulties before we got started. I know that you guys are used to us going live at a certain time, but nonetheless, here we are.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. We're glad to be back with you guys this week. We know it's been some time since you guys have probably seen us, but nonetheless, here we are. You know how it goes. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge all the forces in the non-material, all the ancestors standing behind this great work, the Nabala Musa Moradenabig, all the ancestors that are standing behind this great work, all the ancestors standing behind all of you and all of the powers of nature that own this place and control this place in terms of this land that we're standing on right now. And all the forces in the non-material that are standing behind this great work. And with that being said, my name is Tutipsa Mahekwa Namir. I'm one of your hosts of the Gated Gates podcast, and I am here with...
Kajizri Masai Kebtah, your other host here on the Gated Gates podcast. It's a pleasure to be with you guys again. We've definitely missed you guys. We're joined here with our guest. We'll let her introduce herself.
We didn't miss you, but here we are.
Ouch, already. Do I have to hold this? Because y'all are holding
No, you
it.
don't have to hold it, but just make sure you speak into the mic.
Okay, hello. So my name's Alexis Barber-Davis. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I have my own private practice, Sacred Solace Therapy. I've been doing that for 4 years. Prior to that, I was in nonprofit leadership, management, and child welfare area. So I'm happy to be here.
Welcome. We had the pleasure of meeting Alexis at an event this past weekend. We actually were going to do an episode at the event that we met you at, but we kind of realized that it wouldn't have been the best event to kind of do this at. I know you're laughing.
No.
Yeah, you're laughing because you were there. So we didn't end up doing the episode, but we actually were going to do an episode last Saturday. But then Alexis works with someone from the community, Ishkata. Shout out to Ishkata. We know you're probably not watching, Ishkata, but that's okay. We forgive you. But nonetheless, we were lucky enough to meet Alexis, and a wonderful person, and we just were like, yeah, you should come on the podcast, and here we are. So we did our best. We did our best not to ruin the show by talking too much to Alexis beforehand, because you guys know how Gated Gates goes.
She asks a lot of questions.
Yeah, she asks a lot of questions.
I'm a therapist. I'm paid to be nosy.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
it kind of makes sense.
So we did our best not to pollute the pool before we started the show, because Alexis is very interesting, and she asks a lot of questions because she comes from the whole therapist perspective.
Yes.
So before we go any further, and before we because now we can actually talk, right? So can you tell us a little bit about the work that you do and what kind of spurred you to get involved in the work that you do?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I am a licensed clinical social worker, but the approach that I use to work with folks, so I work with adults 18 and up, and the approach that I use is trauma-informed. And
Just try and talk into the mic, because
okay,
I know
so
you're
maybe
like...
do I need to hold on to the mic? Okay, hello? Is this better? Okay. So the approach that I use is, actually, let me...
You're good.
How do I hold it? Okay. So the approach that I use is I use energy psychology. So the idea is that when we experience trauma, it gets stored in our bodies and it comes out in very unproductive ways, i.e. depression and anxiety. So I work with the client's chakras, I work with their meridians to release trauma, specifically in their childhood, because a lot of the times where we experience pain and suffering, it's usually in childhood. So that's a little bit of what I do in terms of my private practice. How I met these gentlemen and Kebtah is I am a part of a sound healing collective. Shout out to the Healing NYC tree. Actually, that's not true. It's the Healing Tree NYC. I'm like nervous right now. Oh goodness.
It's okay.
Messed up
Take
the name
your time.
of my
It's okay.
collective.
Take your time.
Sorry.
This is what the live does.
I know.
Right?
I felt more comfortable when I was just like naturally asking questions. But so that's what I do. I do sound healing. I also do guided meditations with folks. I do breath work. Just a bunch of different alternative techniques to ground people in their bodies and help them release energy that is no longer serving them.
So when you say you do energy, like what do you
Energy
mean?
therapy.
Energy therapy. Like,
So-
can you expand on that and what that means, please?
Yeah, so when I have a new client, for the first, I'd say, couple of months, I am getting deep into their childhood, right? So what their relationships were like with their parents, any type of experience that caused them pain and suffering. And so I do a really, really deep dive into their history and create a case analysis with folks. So after that case analysis is done, I share it with the client because they also need to know what we're working on. And what I do then is I help them to, first off, I do a lot of education around chakras and meridians. So we talk about that.
Is that where the energy portion is coming in?
Yeah, so chakras are energy centers. And we have, from my perspective, we have 9 of them.
Essentially.
Thank you, appreciate it. And so different energy centers have different associations with what it means to be a human being. So you have your root chakra, and I can go into all of that if that's what y'all want. If
Yeah,
not,
I mean, explain it to us like we're retarded. I mean,
goodness, okay.
unaware.
All
I don't want
right.
to say the word retarded.
No, like a 5-year-old.
Okay, 5-year-old. All right, so you have different. All right, so I like to use this analogy with my clients. So energy chakras are like highways, right? They're like really big hubs that you have, and you need to be able to navigate them to get where you're going. Meridians are energy points. They're like streets. So you have a whole bunch of them in your body. And what happens is that when we struggle, when we go through something that's painful, that causes us distress, that experience gets trapped in our bodies energetically. It messes with chi, it messes with life force, it causes imbalances. And so when we develop these imbalances in our chakras, then we get angry, we get emotional, we are worried all the time, we're feeling really sad. So with chakras, they're like little bubbles, kind of, that go along the spine, or I don't know, what's it called? I'm having a hard time right now. Oh, I'm feeling really nervous. Jeez.
Talk to us like we're clients, like we're prospective
I'm
clients.
putting a little pressure on myself.
Sell us. What did you call? What was the name of your practice again? You said.
So it's Sacred Solace.
Sacred Solace. So
Yes.
talk to us like we're interested in sacred solace.
Yeah, but my clients aren't 5-year-olds, so that's not.
Okay, so talk to us like we're
I'm
a.
very literal, by the way.
a
So when you ask
20-year-old.
me a question, I'm
Okay,
going
okay.
to give you the literal definition. So
Like
I
I'm a
don't-
20-year-old that wants to do sacred solace for the first time, and I haven't been
I have mommy
tarnished.
issues.
You have mommy issues.
Yeah.
We all have mommy and daddy issues. That's number one. We all have mommy and daddy issues. So if you don't think you have mommy and daddy issues, then you're not paying attention.
What if someone thinks that they don't? How would you talk to them?
Oof. Okay. If you didn't think that you had mommy and daddy issues, I would ask a lot of questions, right? So a lot of the times I am focused on relationships with themselves, relationships with other people. So if you don't think you have mommy issues, I'd ask you, well, how's your dating history? Are you successful with dating, or are you not successful with dating? What type of people do you find yourself attracted to? And that can really be insightful in terms of what type of issues you have with your mommy or your daddy.
So what if you're someone that finds yourself being objectified?
Well, can you give me an example of what you mean by objectification?
No, I can't.
Well, then I can't give you an answer. I need context, sir.
Well, I have a couple questions for your practice, right?
Okay.
One, I think Tutipsa kind of asked it a little bit. What exactly led you to this practice in the first place?
So the short version is that spirit wanted me to do it. Do you want me to go into how I became a therapist or how I started my practice? Because those are different. Okay.
Both.
So I had decided to become a therapist. I always knew that I wanted to be a healer because of my own childhood trauma. So my mom, shout out to my mom, I love you, struggled with significant...
Where's your mom?
Oh, she lives in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Shout out to Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yes. So she struggled with significant mental health issues when I was younger. And when you're a kid, you are absorbing everything and anything. And there is this thirst and this curiosity for life. So as my mom was going through this, I was wondering, well, shoot, is this going to happen to me? Do I need to be prepared? Do I need to figure out what I'm going to do once I turn 35? Because that's when my mother really struggled. So I wanted to understand what my life could possibly look like when I was older. So I always knew I wanted to be a therapist from that perspective.
It's like I want to help myself, so let me help the world.
Exactly.
Too,
I want to help my mom. I want to help myself.
Okay.
So that kind of goes into what I said. Your relationship with your parents really does drive a lot of who you are, a lot of what you're capable of, and a lot of what you do with your life. So got into social work. As I mentioned before, my entire career was in child welfare. So think of foster care, think of preventive family preservation.
Man. So you're like really on the ground.
Yes, I was.
You're like really on the ground in terms of like the way, like the system really kinds of like interjects itself into families.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And child welfare also...
how do you keep your sanity?
I smoke weed.
Huh?
I smoke weed.
You got to say that a little louder. They can't hear you.
So the formal response to that is I practice and promote significant amounts of self-care. So what that self-care looks like is why we're all laughing as I said smoke weed. I smoke marijuana. But I do a lot of self-care. Grounding is something that is incredibly important because I'm also an air and a fire sign, so need a lot of grounding as well. But to get back to your question about how I got to my practice, so I always knew I wanted to run a group home for kids. That was my first job out of undergrad, and I always wanted to go back to group homes. Kids who live in group homes just can't be safe in the community, so they have to be kind of institutionalized. That's really what it is. So my pinnacle of my career was being a program director of a foster care group home. That's how I knew that I was going to be successful. And I got that job in 2019. I was able to open up my own brand new program in the Bronx. And I was committed. I would have died there. I would have had multiple ulcers. All of my hair would have fallen out, but I was committed because that's what I thought Spirit wanted me to do. COVID hit. That was a mess. We still had to open up the group home despite COVID hitting. And fast forward, I got fired. I got fired from
Who fired?
the organization that I worked for because they weren't getting the results that they were looking for. And me as the program director, during COVID. This was 2021.
I feel like everybody should get a blank check during COVID.
But the thing is that Spirit didn't want me there. Spirit wanted me to do my own thing. I'm stubborn, but unfortunately Spirit is more stubborn than I am. So I lost my job, completely devastated. This was my entire career. Like you couldn't tell me I wasn't going to do anything else. So then I got another job because I'm stubborn as a director of a mental health program in Brooklyn. And within 6 months got fired from that position. So I have never been fired in my entire career. I've always been an amazing candidate for all of my jobs. And within 6 months got fired twice.
That must have been a real shot to your ego.
Well, hold
What?
on.
What?
Before you
Twice.
give in to
Twice.
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 Okay, so when you say like spirit,
That was my next
because
question.
there's a lot of people that maybe, because I think everyone has like their own particular vernacular that they use.
Yeah.
So when you say like spirit, can you explain that to someone that maybe wouldn't understand what you say when you say spirit?
Yeah, so I have an amazing spiritual support team behind me. So when I say spirit, I mean God. I mean higher self. I mean collective consciousness. You can call it the universe. That's usually the labels that people associate with spirit. So that's what I mean, God.
So now, what came after these? Because to me, it sounds like it's redirects, right? Like you had like constant
Absolutely.
redirects that kind of
Absolutely.
came up and kind of like, moved you in different directions. So then what do you think was the purpose of those redirects? And then where did it lead you? And then where do you find yourself now?
It led me here.
You mean like
It led me
here?
to, well, technically, it led me here, right? Because if I didn't have my own practice, I wouldn't have met my Sound Healing Collective. I wouldn't have been invited to the conference that I met y'all at, and I wouldn't be here right now.
So that might be like an oversimplification for a lot of people because a lot of people don't know. I don't even know, right? Like because I didn't know you before last week, right? So I'm just gonna kind of lay it out on the table now because like now that we're here. So in particular, I wanted to really kind of have the conversation because I always find healers interesting, right?
Okay.
And I find healers interesting in the sense of I find healers to be people that need healing. Because healers need healing too.
Yes, we do.
Because we extend ourselves so much to people and we give so much to people that are in need of what we can do and what we're capable of and what we bring to the table. But what I find is who heals the healer, right? Like that's my ultimate question is like, because we can give so much of ourselves, but then who pours into us when we've exhausted ourselves pouring into others? So then what's your take on that?
I'll heal you.
Should we start now? Should we start now? Yes, let's start now.
Absolutely.
If there's
not.
anyone in the
I am
comment
offended
section
right
that
now.
wants, okay, yeah, I know. Like he totally robbed us of the
Yes,
serious moment.
It was
Like,
very
yeah.
serious. I was about
That's
to
why I
go
had
in.
to
If
tone
there's
it down
anyone
a
in
little
the
bit.
if there's anyone in the comments that wants to contribute to how a healer heals themselves without saying anything weird or creepy or inappropriate, please do so.
Yeah. I think first and foremost, the healer has to be in a position to want the healing. And what I didn't mention when I talked about how I met them was that I have been actively struggling with sadness. I have been actively struggling with the conflict of what it means to be a healer and feeling very disconnected from humanity, feeling disconnected from spirit. And I tell my clients all the time, you know, one of the things that my clients like is just knowing that what they're going through is normal. And so one of the things that I tell my clients when they're struggling with their own sadness, when they're struggling with their own feelings of unworthiness, is that the things that you need to do to get you out of that sadness, there has to be a willingness, right? There has to be a willingness to practice your self-care, call somebody and say, I'm struggling. There has to be an active, conscious effort to want something better for yourself. But when you're sad and when you're in a dark place, that's hard. It's hard to reach out. It's hard to connect. It's hard to perhaps go to the gym. It's hard to, get physical exercise. It's hard to be around people because all you want to do is isolate, right? But what happens is that when we isolate, when we stop eating healthy, when we start doing the things that we know are helpful, it just perpetuates that cycle. So I say all of this to say that when I met y'all, I was in a place where I'm like, all right, I need to do something. I need to find the energy to activate the practices that I know are going to make me feel better. I call it a depression cycle, right? Because in order to get out of feeling depressed, you got to do something about it. But the depression makes you not want to do anything. So then it just kind of perpetuates. So in order for a healer to want to be healed, there has to be a desire to want to heal. That's first and foremost. There has to be a motivation and a commitment to get back to where you were, where I was.
Are you still in that depression cycle, would you say?
I'm coming out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I actually want to say that last weekend when I met y'all was exactly what I needed. Exactly what I needed. It was spot on.
Mm-hmm.
Being in community, right? So I talked about isolation. That's just natural. When we're not feeling well, we want to kind of just go in and we want to retreat. And I had been retreating for a while. I had lost sense of my community. And then I saw, my community at the conference. And, part of my community introduced me to y'all. And so I was able to get some laughs from you. I was able to share my story because it's difficult being vulnerable, right? Like, I'm the healer. I should have everything together. I should know everything and always rise to the occasion.
Well, I think that comes from a place of our own kind of like expectation of ourselves, because sometimes we forget we're human beings too. And not just us, like other people. You might want to help somebody or you might be helping someone. So they look at you a certain kind of way. So in a way, that's like you now falling victim to somebody else's perception of your own reality. And I think as people trying to help others or be healers, we have to keep that in mind, that how somebody else views me doesn't necessarily mean that is how I have to view myself.
But that's conscious awareness, and that's exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
That's very exhausting. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I'm tired. I just want to be on my couch and eat bonbons, even though they don't have bonbons anymore. Do y'all get that
I
reference?
thought they do. I think they do have
They
bonbons.
do have bonbons
Yeah.
out.
What's a
Okay.
bonbon?
Maybe they don't have bonbons in the city,
What's a
but they have
bonbon?
bonbons.
It's more of a reference. I've actually never had a bonbon before, but
You don't eat
back in the
bonbons?
day, no, I've never had a
So then
bonbon.
what do you eat when you're sitting on your couch?
Junk food.
Like what?
Junk food like chocolate, like Popeyes, like Checkers.
Checkers. What do you get from Checkers?
I get the spicy chicken sandwich.
So good.
It's
You get the
so-
banana
oh,
milkshake?
I've never had the milkshake.
Oh, the banana milkshake
No.
is so good.
I'm too cheap for a milkshake. I don't want it.
Why? What do you mean cheap?
I just want the combo. I want the Coke, the Dr. Pepper, my burger, and fries.
Yeah, but I
'Cause
mean, you don't
milkshakes
have
are
to
like
get the-
$10.
But you don't have
I
to
don't
get
want
the
it.
milkshake. You don't have to get the milkshake with the combo. This is like fat people shit.
So this is so interesting.
I know.
We're talking about
going
healing,
off,
right?
We're totally going off camera.
We're talking about healing and then
Going
talking
off
about junk
track.
food. How does
Haru set, nigga.
But you know what? But that goes back to the cycle that I was talking about, right? The junk food kept me like feeling exhausted. So I didn't have the energy to get back into the conscious awareness that you're talking about. I mean, being a healer from my perspective is you have to be aware. You have to be aware of how you respond, how you think, how you feel, because they are all connected.
So it sounds like you've had a lot of thought this
Oh,
past
yes.
week. So how is that, like the depression cycle you're talking about, when you're going through that as a healer, how does that affect your practice? Because you mentioned it's all dealing with energy, right? So how do you protect your clients from your own energy?
That's a really good question. I would
You
like... You said you can't?
No, I don't think you can.
My hope is that it doesn't affect them. I know that when I'm in a dark place, I have more struggles. I have more challenges. And depending on the client, it actually works in their benefit, and sometimes it doesn't work to their benefit. It works to their detriment. I think that when I am struggling, I give them more space. I let them lead the sessions a bit more than I would. My approach is very structured. So as I was talking before, there's a case analysis. We have, different assignments that we do. And so when I'm struggling, number one, I tell them I'm tired. That's kind of my cue.
You tell them?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Let's wrap it up.
I don't, no.
Paid for 2 hours, but I'm tired.
No,
let's wrap it up.
so at the beginning
30 minutes or less, nigga. Get to the point.
Absolutely not. No, they deserve the best of me. But as a therapist, we're in relationship with each other. They can pick up on my stuff and I can pick up on their stuff. So at the beginning, of each session that we have, I do a check-in with them. How are you feeling? And they'll tell me, and they will 9 times out of 10 ask me how I'm feeling. And I'll say something like, I'm hanging in there today, or I'm tired. So if you feel my tiredness, please don't take it personally, because my clients do take things personally. So when I come in and I am dysregulated or disorganized, it's important to name it so that they don't think that they're doing something wrong. So I have an honest conversation. Sometimes they'll be like, well, what's wrong? And I'll say, we're not talking about that. This hour is for you and you only. And I will role model boundaries for them. And I'll bring it to my own therapist, because I too have a therapist.
So the interesting thing is, like, because what I hear when you're describing this is that, like, you will always try and be present, right? And then on top of being present, then you always try, and then, like, you're like, okay, hey, like, I really don't have anything for you, right? And then
I'll say
it's
it like
almost,
that,
well, I say that in the sense of, like, you'll be like, I don't have anything for you. And then you are almost, it's a give and take, right? So then it's like, okay, I don't have much to give you right now. So then because I don't have much to give you, then let me see what you have. And then depending upon what you have, then we'll go from there. Because
Correct.
what I hear when I'm listening to you talk about how you interact with your clients is that you are putting yourself in a position where it's a dance of sorts, right? It's like a tennis match of sorts. And I don't
Okay.
mean like a tennis
Okay.
match in the terms of a competition. I mean a tennis match
It's a
in
volley.
the sense of like it's a volley.
Mhm.
Like you give,
Yep.
you give. You serve, I serve. You give, I give. Now, what I find interesting is how do you position yourself? Because what I find is that a lot of healers will exhaust themselves to such a degree that they then don't have anything left. And then they kind of like are on E. They're on empty for themselves
Absolutely.
in their lives,
Absolutely.
but then they still have to show up for other people. So then I find it interesting when you look at statistics that say that a lot of therapists and a lot of, you know, mental health specialists in terms of people that make themselves available for other people will commit suicide a lot. And they will find themselves, you know, maybe exhausting themselves. Because to me, suicide is like is an extreme way out of a situation that you find yourself in. So I always find it interesting looking at, because I look at mental health specialists as on the ground healers. I look
Sure.
at them as on the ground healers in terms of like they're putting themselves in situations that is very difficult to manage and is very difficult to change because the circumstances, I think, sometimes aren't contextualized properly. The situations that they're dealing with aren't able to be managed properly because they find themselves really zeroed in and really on the ground and then investing themselves in situations. So then I always find people that gravitate toward those kind of things intriguing in that regard.
Because we're actively putting ourselves in positions to support someone through their deepest, darkest fears, their deepest, darkest worries. I mean, I think what you said is real. Burnout is real. The transfer of energies is real. I think that kind of also goes back to when I am struggling, I isolate because I really don't have anything else to give. There were times in the last few weeks where I got up, I did a session, the session to the best of my ability, I got off, and I went and laid back on the couch. I had, let's say, an hour break in between sessions, and I would choose to do things that would make me feel better in that moment temporarily. And then I would wash my face. I'd, get my hair, do my hair, put on some music to kind of change the mood, put on some incense, and then I'd get right back in front of the camera and I'd rinse and repeat. I knew that this was different. This episode was different when I didn't want to talk to my own therapist. That's when I knew that something was off with this, because no matter how stressful life is, and I also want to bring in the world events. The world events are just really chaotic for me, for my clients, for those around me. And so there's a lot of heaviness in the world events. There's a lot of heaviness astrologically. Like, we're about to have a lunar solar eclipse tomorrow. I can talk about that as well. But it's been so difficult that I had to cancel my own therapy because I just didn't have the energy to. I chose not to have the energy to do what was going to be right for me in that moment. And that was a difficult conversation that I had to have with my therapist. I had to talk to her the next session and tell her, like, yes, I struggled and I really needed you, but the feelings of isolation were just that strong and that pronounced that I didn't want to do anything about it.
I mean, that's interesting because in hearing you talk about like your practice and like the stuff you do, I keep thinking about that word energy again. And in doing what you do you have any practices to kind of like clean yourself from the amount of energy you go through through the day?
Absolutely. So
Because I'm wondering if a lot of what you might be feeling might not necessarily even be coming from you.
absolutely. I have quite a few energetic practices that I have. So one of them, and all again, this is predicated on whether or not I have the energy to do so. So I'm going to go back to that cycle, right? It's a circle. If you have the energy to protect, then you're going to do that. When I don't have the energy, then I'm not going to protect myself. But to answer your question, I do guided visualizations, protecting myself with white light. I do pray. I sage myself. I have incense burning for most of the time with my clients. I have crystals all around. I do weekly baths, Sunday nights. That's part of my routine with herbs and essential oils and music just to kind of get my mind right for the week. I have a cat and a dog who bring significant amount of joy to my life.
What's your cat's name?
My cat's name is Batman. Why y'all laughing?
So you met Roscoe, right?
Is it a black cat?
No, it's a gray tabby.
So Roscoe, I always joke around and say that Roscoe in his mind thinks he's Batman
Really?
patrolling Gotham City.
Look at that.
Because he just, oh shit, hold on, I unplugged something, but I don't know what I unplugged. But
That's really
Roscoe's so ridiculous.
Yes.
Because he really thinks he's like doing something of like of merit or like of value, and then you're just like Roscoe
by attacking
by
our
attacking
legs,
you.
yes?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I'm like, Roscoe, stop.
I just need to know, is the dog's name Robin?
No, her name's Misu, but that would have been really
Misu?
cute. Misu, like tiramisu, because she's sweet and she's brown and white. She's so cute. Tiramisu.
Oh, tiramisu.
Yeah, Misu.
So then, how did you go from Batman to tiramisu or misu?
Misu. I mean, when I got Batman, most cats are active at night. That's number one. Number two, in the middle of the night, he would jump on my bed and he'd soar through the air, and all I would see is his little like cat ears. And it reminded me of the Batman signal. And his name was Louis when I rescued him.
Louis?
Like,
Where'd you rescue
that's
him
whack.
from?
Where did I rescue him from? I think it's called Angelica Cats.
He was like what? How old was he?
He
was just like
was-
at a shelter? Or?
Yeah, he was like 8 or 9 months old. He was in a foster home.
Okay.
But I met him at Petco, and he was really, really cute and sweet and calm and chill.
What was going on in your life when you met Batman?
Oh, God, we're
That
not
you
going to go
decided
there.
no, but you decided
We're not going to go there.
because here's the interesting thing to me, right?
Yes.
Is you called him a superhero. So then to me, psychologically, that means
About to get deep.
something to some extent because you called the cat like a hero, essentially.
I mean, I just saw
I
his
see
cat
what
ears.
you did there.
I know, like you're going like
Yeah.
super like subconscious, and
I mean, because you don't do things by accident.
and I
nothing
really
is
thought
ever
it
by
was. I
accident.
thought it was very literal. I saw his cat ears, but I mean, to answer your point, it was this was back in 2012, and it was a really dark time in my life back then. So I definitely needed some superheroing.
Do you feel like Batman changed your life? Because I feel like, have you ever heard that? Have you ever
No.
heard that statement? You said no?
No.
You've never heard that statement? I'm going to challenge that.
Okay.
You've never heard that statement when they say like, the animal, I didn't rescue the animal rescued me?
Yes, but I don't think that that's accurate in my
You're an
case.
asshole.
Wait, what did I miss?
He just chuckled.
Inside joke?
No, he just chuckled when I said that.
Okay.
So I'm like, you're an asshole because he is over here
The cats
chuckling.
changed his life.
Aw, are
He
you
rest-
speaking
he
from
rest with him.
experience?
Nugs and Roscoe changed my life.
How
I'm
did
not,
they,
I'm
wait,
not gonna front.
so let's turn the tables. How have
Okay.
they changed your life?
How was Roscoe and Nugs changed my
Yes, how
life?
have they
Okay,
changed
so
your
for
life?
instance, okay, so Nugs is really kind of the case study because when I'm not to even go into the whole thing about Nugs and how she showed up is like too long. But
Shorten it.
nah, bro, it's gonna take too long. But like the interesting thing is like I notice with myself, right? The way I interact with animals is completely different from the way that I interact with human beings.
Nuggets. Nuggets. Nuggets.
McNuggets of the ruggers. So, particularly, right? What I find is that with animals, I think that human beings can have an interesting relationship with animals, right? Because I think that we can project onto animals what maybe we can't project onto human beings. Now, what I take away from relationships with animals is that animals don't have the ability to hurt you, whereas that human beings have the ability to hurt you. So
Yeah, there's an interdependence between human beings that don't exist with animals.
when you say interdependence, what does that mean?
So interdependence means the ability to depend on each other for whatever the case may be. I can make the argument that my relationship with my cat and my dog, like they are 100% dependent on me. I give them food, I give them shelter, I give them love. I think the only way that we can look at interdependence with animals is through emotional support, which is, don't get me wrong, that's great, but I'm not dependent on them for anything else besides emotional support.
Can I throw something out at you?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Catwoman?
With Halle
movie,
with
the
Halle
The one
Berry.
with Holly Berry?
Sure, that one, or just one where she was in Batman, whatever.
Years
I
ago.
have, yeah.
Yeah.
Not enough to like reference it like really well, but I saw it years ago when it first came out.
Because I asked that question because the interesting thing about what you said is that you said the animal provides emotional support. And if I understand where Tutips is really going with this conversation, let me
Okay.
just try to take it there a little bit, right? So, have you noticed that in a lot of cultures around the world, you might see depictions of certain animals in statues or on different hieroglyphs and different things like that? Have you ever
Absolutely.
wondered why certain animals are there? I mean, look around here.
I know,
I'm sure you can see.
Well, I mean, I definitely know for sure cats are incredibly spiritual. They are highly revered in quite a few cultures spiritually. So outside of cats, I'm not familiar with like dogs. I don't really know about the spiritual essence of dogs.
Okay, just fucking go there because
Am I not picking up what you're putting down?
I don't think so.
No,
Go ahead.
I'm not.
It's
You have to be very
interesting.
direct with me. I'm
Yeah,
very direct.
I'm getting
Yeah.
there. No, it's just interesting because the type of work you do,
Mm-hmm.
really it involves a lot of exchange with people. Meaning
Yes.
like you're always in contact with somebody. And technically as a healer, you end up putting yourself almost in danger in a way because you're always interacting with other people's problems, other people's issues, and other people's energies.
Correct.
You never know what people have going on out there.
Correct.
There's a lot of stuff that they could have on them that might transfer to you. Now, when he asked the name of your cat and you said Batman, and he made that reference to it being almost like a superhero. Subconsciously, you named it that. But spiritually, like we understand the cats to kind of be almost like protectors, but also people, or not people, things that can cleanse energy and cleanse spaces. So subconsciously, you might have made that decision to recognize that this is what I do, but I need this thing in my life in this moment, in this period, in this time. Because it sounded like you adopted the cat when you got fired.
Well, no. I've always had cats. This is very ironic, but because I've always had cats my entire life. Like, I've always had cats. I've only had 2 dogs, but I've had a plethora of cats throughout my years. And ironically, now that I think about it, the first time I got a cat is when my mom was going through her really challenging mental health breakdown, now that I think about it. That's the first time I got a cat.
Was the cat okay?
Oh, he was great. And then he got outside.
Was the cat having mental issues?
Yeah, I have to ask that question. I'm going to tell you why I asked that question. Hear me out. Another interesting thing about animals is they take things on from their owners sometimes. So, a lot of like issues you might have, it might start showing up in the dog.
You know what's wild? So my cat's name was Jesse. He was absolutely amazing. And then he got out one night and spent 2 nights out of the house, and I was freaking out. I was worried about him. We finally found him, and he was never the same. He was defecating in the house. He was meowing. He was ripping up things. He had completely drastically changed. So the fact that you're saying that, it kind of lands. It makes sense because...
Yeah, I had a friend. Well, not really a friend. He's a coworker. He had a dog, right? And he opened up to me for some reason. Again, you end up being in positions where people just tell you their problems. So he was opening up to me about his like family situation, and his father has cancer. And his father they gave him like 6 months to live or something like that. But the other interesting thing was the same time his father got sick, so did the dog. And the father and the dog had a very good relationship, meaning like the dog was always with the father. He'd always be on him. He'd always be petting him, all that kind of stuff. So the dog ended up being diagnosed with cancer. So in a weird way, a lot of issues that might be happening inside the household, the animals take it on. Sometimes they're taking some of the pain from you. So the theory goes, if the dog wasn't there, maybe his father would have died sooner.
Yeah, I mean...
No, I mean, I feel like my brain just expanded. Like I'm like making all of these connections, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is fascinating. And I feel like my brain's like, dude, it's computing what you're saying, because I never looked at it that way.
I mean, when you look at like a household, right? Like there's, like you look at the almost like the head of the household always becomes sort of like the kind of like the brainwave setter. So then like an animal will take on kind of like the brainwaves of like the head of the household. So animals in and of themselves, like animals have a like when you have a animal in the house, like you have them in the house for spiritual reasons. You don't normally have animals in the house for, emotional attachments.
Or the sake of just having pets.
Or for the sake of just having pets. In the West, that's what it's become.
Okay.
It's become something where you're like, okay, I'm going to keep this animal in the house because I have an emotional relationship with the animal as opposed to having an emotional relationship with the human being. Because that's like where like that cat stereotype comes from with like single white women or like single women in general. Because I don't want to just
like
limit
5 cats.
Yeah, they have like 5 cats, like the crazy cat lady. And then like all she has is cats. And then like she doesn't have a relationship with any human beings. And there's a great joke by Hassan Minhaj where he says like the reason why people have these relationships with their dogs is because their dog doesn't know that you're a piece of shit. Like your dog.
Jeez.
Your dog.
Hey man, I bark and she feeds me, man.
Word. Like your dog just
So
looks
wait a
at
second. So are you saying that if dogs had the brain capacity to have that level of awareness, are you saying that dogs wouldn't want to be domesticated and live with us because
I
we're
don't-
pieces of shit?
I don't think. Okay, I think it depends on the person, right? So, who do you consider a piece of shit? Who do you consider a piece of shit? That's really kind of the question.
Okay.
Like, if you just gotta,
This
if you
is
gotta
too-
give me your top 5 of piece of shits in human history, who's on your top 5 of pieces of shits?
I mean,
Depends on the dog too, right?
No. We're gonna play this. We're gonna play this game.
We're talking about
We're gonna
dogs
play
and
this game.
personalities now.
I mean,
Give me your top 5 of the most horrible human beings that come to mind, or top 3.
all right. I mean, I guess I'll go with the conversation and answer the question. I guess Donald Trump.
Okay, Donald Trump.
Gosh.
Is he number 1 or is he number 3?
I don't do favorites. I can do like top 3 in no order.
Yeah.
No
So just
specific
give me your 2 of them.
Okay, so I guess Donald Trump. I don't know. I'm having a hard time because I don't really consider people pieces of shit.
But you
So I'm
threw
having a
Donald
hard time
Trump
with
out
that
there. So
because I felt like I
who else is
had to
there?
answer the question.
She's getting real political.
You know who
No.
you eat. Come on. You're telling me there's nobody that you're like, fuck that person.
Okay, there's a couple exes.
Okay. So do you feel like you would
Now
throw
we're
your
getting
exes in there? Yeah.
Exes, I call them a piece of shit.
Whatever. Someone that you find unfavorable.
Okay, so I guess Donald Trump. I would say, a couple of exes. I'll say 1 X and 2 X. Those are my top 3.
1X and 2X?
X1 and X2.
X1 and X2. Okay.
There we go, yes.
Do they have pets?
I don't know about one of them, and the other one I would say no.
Okay, let's imagine any of them have pets, right? Do you
Okay.
think that their pets look at them like you're a piece of shit?
No, of course not.
Why not?
Because they get fed and they're sheltered by the ex. Their needs are taken care of. Their needs are met. When your needs are met, then that person or that animal is not a piece of shit for you.
So this is what I'm saying.
So what are you saying?
I'm saying, how come people would prefer relationships with pets and animals over human beings?
Because it's simpler.
Why is it simpler?
It's simpler because it's similar to the industrial world versus the pre-industrial world, right?
How?
Oh God, maybe I shouldn't have that.
No. We're
Okay. So technology has made us smarter, but it's also made us stupider, right?
Okay, hold on. Okay.
Keep going.
Just okay. So, but what I do need, because sometimes I go on a tangent, so I need you to remember like what the initial question was, because sometimes I can go all over the place.
No, go.
So
We'll take the ride with
so
you.
the question is, what was the question again?
The question is that how come your animal won't look at you like you're a piece of shit?
Because
Your
the
pet
animal,
won't look at you
the
like you're a
animal
piece of shit.
has very, very basic needs, and because the animal has basic needs, then human beings can fulfill them. So the analogy that I was going to use is with the industrial world, technology has made our lives a lot more convenient, a lot more simpler, but it's also complicated things. So our needs have increased significantly with the industrial world. Would you agree with that?
Our needs have increased.
Our needs, our wants,
with the
our
industrial world.
desires.
I wouldn't say needs, but I would definitely say our wants.
That's
I
a
would
fair
probably
point.
say our distractions.
Because I think needs are non-negotiable. Whereas that wants can be changed.
Okay, so you're getting into a very philosophical question about like what is a need. But
Well, do you think that needs can change?
absolutely needs can change.
based on what? Though?
Depending upon what, though?
Based on how your life is developing, where you are in your life.
Can wants change?
Wants can absolutely change.
But how come wants are easier to change versus needs?
I didn't say wants are easier to change than needs.
But you said wants absolutely could change, and then needs, then you needed to explain why they could change.
Well, that's because you asked me the question.
So then what makes them different?
Oh, dang. Okay.
Cue the Law and Order music.
Yeah, can
We
you
don't have any sound
can you-
system
can-
anymore. We don't do that no more.
We do have sounds, but I don't have headphones to know what the sounds are.
So a need is something that is required in order to survive. And perhaps, I'm just throwing it out here. So a want is something that is a requirement for something, for how you can thrive. So a need is something that is required to survive, and a want might be something that's required to thrive.
What do you mean when you say a want is something that's required to thrive? Can you give an example?
I want to go to Tokyo. And that decision to go to Tokyo will expand my worldview. It'll expand my perspective. It'll give me a new experience, which will help me to thrive. It'll help me to unlock another level, so you say.
When you say thrive, what do you mean?
I mean, feel better, do better, be better, think better, feel better, live better, love better. There's some type of development with thriving.
So that's an interesting perspective, because when you talk about like a need, like Tutipsa said, it's almost like you can't really change that. Like that's not negotiable. But when you talk about a want, at the end of the day, even like those things like wanting to go to a new place because you want that like trip to give you this specific thing, it never really leaves the realm of you wanting that, if that makes sense. Because when I hear need, sometimes what we need might not necessarily be what we want. So what we do doesn't necessarily have to be what we want. So I think when you talk about needs, you do what you need to do regardless if it's what you want or not. But if it's a want, it's almost like an emotional thing at the end of the day. Does that make sense? It's like it's not like necessarily, you can want something, but you might not necessarily know until you get it, and then you get it, and then it's like, oh, whatever.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
But then after that, you want something else. But a need, you can't really change it. So then, could you say you really like your wants can be needs at that point? Because it's always fluctuating.
You lost me. I'm lost. I'm gone. I feel like I'm like one of those like cartoons that's like has like the little like black and white spirals in their eyes. It's like I don't know what you just said. I'm sorry.
All right, let me say it in a more simple way.
Okay.
Like when you need, you need. When you want, you just want. So you can't call a want a need.
Correct, but perhaps for the conversation we should define what a need is.
Well, I think a need is a non-negotiable.
But what is that?
It's
though?
like okay, so what's
need
the
to eat.
temperature outside?
Maybe 50 degrees.
Okay, so then at what point do human beings need shelter?
I mean, it could depend on the person. I mean, I might need shelter, but someone who doesn't have a home, someone who's houseless, might be okay in 50-degree weather.
That doesn't mean they don't need shelter.
So
They
then
just
I'm
find
saying,
shelter
like,
elsewhere.
Human beings need shelter. Is that
For
fair?
argument's sake, yes.
For argument's sake?
For argument's sake, yes.
Are you homeless?
No,
Alexis?
I'm not homeless.
Okay. Like, do you feel like people need homes? Like, people need shelter? I feel like human beings aren't like dogs, aren't like cats, aren't like animals that are
I mean, would you consider
Even
like
those-
would you
adjusted to the
But
environment.
even those animals, like, if it starts to rain or snow, they're gonna find shelter.
They're gonna find shelter, or they're gonna know where to go to
so would you
find
consider
shelter.
like a tent shelter?
So I mean, without getting into the specifics of what we consider shelter, a human being needs shelter. Okay, let me ask you this. All right, let's remove it from something that
Okay.
could be trivialized. How long do you think a human being can go before they need to eat?
Oh, I mean, as long as they're drinking water, they could probably go.
How long does a human being need to go
but
before they
listen,
need to
you're
drink?
talking to a
water?
therapist, so I am always going to have like. I'm going to analyze a little bit
psychological
more.
answer?
I
You're
am.
always
I
going
am
to have
going.
some way
I
out
am
of it.
going to have contextual questions. I am going to want explanations for
Yeah.
things because language is
'Cause I am a
important.
therapist.
I am a therapist, and language is
Yes.
very important. So how I
Everything
use
must
my
be
language,
analyzed.
how I use my language might be different than you.
Okay. So then let me ask you this. How long before a human being can survive without eating or drinking? Eating and drinking.
Eating it. I mean, what, like 72 hours? I think.
72 hours?
I'm guessing. I don't know.
How long do you think a human being can go without getting on TikTok?
Say that. Well,
10 seconds.
it depends. It depends.
73 hours.
It depends on
But,
the
okay,
person.
Do you get what I'm saying, though?
I yes, I get what
There's
you're
a
saying.
need versus a want.
Yes. I mean,
Go to
some,
an indigenous
some would
village.
argue that being on TikTok is a need. It can be a useful temporary distraction to whatever they're going through.
But then
So
it
one could
becomes-
argue it's a need.
But then it becomes something
What, TikTok's a
emotional.
need?
One could argue because if I am an overthinker.
Negro, please. What do you mean?
You know what this
Listen.
is? I always have this saying.
See, now I'm getting hot.
With
Let's go. Come on.
the modern world today is the only time in existence that the truth can be debated.
But that's what
That's
I mean
fair.
by the
Only
industrial.
time.
But that's what I'm talking about with the industrial world. Like things have gotten more complicated. The smarter we get,
I
the
don't
more
think-
advanced we get, the more complicated things
Well, I
become.
think the more advanced we get, the dumber we become.
I agree.
I think it's
I agree.
fair to say that when you say complicated, you mean
Difficult, challenging.
harder to navigate,
Yes.
right? You don't mean necessarily that it's necessary. Because I think when you look at needs, there's a difference between needs and wants. And then when you say it's complicated, then it's more so about attachment. It's attachment to the wants. Because if I say, Alexis, we're going to the bush, right? We're going to Africa. We're going to the bush. No electricity, no running water, no internet, right?
I would actually be happy about that
Why would you be happy?
because then I could focus on what I would consider important.
You would focus on needs versus what you want? But how long do you think you would
Yes,
last?
I would focus on needs versus a want.
How long do you think you would last in that environment before you would start being like,
Well,
what's going on TikTok?
We don't have no juice. Is it juice?
Where's my vape?
Really had to go there. Had to go there.
But it's
Okay,
true though. It's true. It's true.
Yes. So
We've done it. But we're gonna put you in that circumstance and then
Okay,
see
so
what's
I'm not
up.
gonna
I-
lie, bro. I snuck and made lemonade this past trip.
You did?
I was making lemonade.
Where? How?
I was getting the limes from the trees and
Uh-huh.
getting water from the well and just squeezing them. And I had some sugar from my
Where did you
kitchen.
this nigga? Where did you get You're talking about from the whole tea thing? There was like this nigga. See, you don't know what it's like. You don't know what it's like to be doing what he's talking about until you're in the mountains of Togo with no cell phone service.
in the desert.
It's not the desert.
I would-
It's tropical. It's tropical. In the middle of nowhere,
okay.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's no running water, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're in a tent and it's hot as balls, right?
101
It's
degrees.
100 degrees.
Okay.
And then you're out here and you're like, have you ever had African food?
I have.
What have you had?
I've had jollof, and then I had
jollof rice.
what?
I said this is not jollof rice though.
I also had a couple of Nigerian things. I don't remember the names of them outside of the jollof, but it was cool.
Well, it's
I've had
like,
Ethiopian food. That's really good.
No, Ethiopian food is different.
It's really good.
Ethiopian food is like, I wouldn't even really kind of, dare I say, not consider it African food. I don't want to say it's not African food.
Let's be careful with that.
I know,
one.
yeah. Zawaz is going to come in here with a machete like, oh! Zawaz is an Ethiopian dude. He's not here. He's the guy that would be doing what Taj is doing, but Taj is filling in for him.
Shout out to Taj. Good job filling in.
Well, this wouldn't be possible without Taj. This wouldn't be possible with a lot of people. Oh, yo. Hold on. The funny thing is that Ishkata said I did the same thing, and
What,
then
the
Jessica
lemonade?
said you were making lemonade and didn't offer me any.
Oh, Jessica, I'm sorry.
You just ratted yourself out.
It was few, it was rationed,
Okay, so the point being is that shit changes.
Yes.
I would be really interested to see you in that environment because I know all of that, like a lot of the like nice shit will go out the window.
I mean, perhaps.
You already said that you're like when
Hangry.
you're hangry, like
am.
shit gets real.
Yes.
So then when you're sitting there, you're like, where the fuck is the food?
Yeah, I think as long as I'm fed and I have insect repellent, I will be good. I would need insect repellent.
So again, those are needs.
Those are needs.
Insect
No,
repellent's
insect
a
repellent
want.
is.
That's a want.
I mean.
Come on now. You can't tell me that insect repellent's a need because that's environmental. There's no insects out right now because it's cold as hell.
Well, I'm talking about if I'm in the bush. I'm assuming that there are lots of insects that would love my blood.
Why do you think they would love your blood?
You made it sound like a vampire.
Because I got sweet blood.
Why is that?
I don't know. Just said it.
See, again,
Just sounded good.
It's always interesting because the needs and the wants conversation, because again, you do need to eat.
Yes.
But here I've noticed.
Apparently not, because I'm
West-
starving and everybody, is cool with it. But
You'll be fine.
you talked about me being a cookie monster.
Yeah.
Simply because I like
Yeah, because
to eat.
Alexis was like, full disclosure, Alexis was like, I'll need to bring a sandwich because if I don't have a sandwich, then I will start to get angry on camera. And I was like, what are you, Cookie Monster? Like,
I love
who
the
says that?
dramatic impression. Jeez. But it's true.
Yeah, it's everything I do is dramatic. So
I see
you
that,
got to
yeah.
learn the dramatic, theatrical side.
You get used to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I forgot what I was even saying.
Yeah.
We're still talking about needs and wants.
Now, the food, I was saying, you do need food. But
You do need food.
one thing I've noticed here in the West is we have so much access to all these different kind of food.
Yeah.
All year round. You don't necessarily eat according to the environment. So even food, a necessity.
It's not about survival.
Yeah, it's not about survival. A necessity then becomes a want.
Well, a need is connected to survival, whereas that a want is connected to anything. It's connected to an emotional
Attachment.
attachment. That's why you can say like, yeah, you know what? Like, yeah, like my cat is a want versus a need, as opposed to there being a spiritual reason why you need a pet in the house.
But one could argue that if we're talking about spirituality, maybe having a cat is a spiritual need.
Yeah, but that's again.
Especially since what you were talking about, where
but
I'm
that's again
exposing myself
the
to
difference is, though,
different energies.
The difference is, now we're talking about like society. Yeah. In Western society, the pet has become a want. It's not necessarily a need, because Western society doesn't really have the necessary context to even fathom or understand what we're talking about in terms of the spiritual aspects.
Sure.
Because it's just, as we were talking about in the car, dare I say, a lack of culture. Because to even have that need, you'd have to have a cultural understanding for that need, for you to even have the need. But now it's become an emotional attachment thing where people more so want to be more attached to the animal because it's easier than it is dealing with people.
Animals are more consistent. than people?
I mean, well, they only deal with their needs. People have wants.
I see where you're going. I see where you're going.
But should that be the reason why you stop dealing with people?
What that our attachment to
Not
people.
you, not saying you per
No,
se.
no, no. I'm trying to conceptualize your question. So, are you saying that people in general
'Cause
only?
I've heard this. Like some men too would say they don't even want to be in a relationship because
Okay.
they rather just have like a cat or a dog or something.
Mm-hmm.
Because as like you said, the cat or dog is consistent.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Why does the ability? Because so I think when you look at the psychology of like dating apps, right? Like
Okay.
Tinder, Bumble, I don't know what else is out there, but like when
Okay.
you look at
Cupid,
those,
Hinge,
Okay,
Match.
Cupid,
I've done them
Hinge.
all.
Match, you've got them all.
Mhm.
So when you look at them, right, they're predicated upon the ability to buy premium features that allow you to know who is interested in you, right?
I don't pay for any of them, but okay.
I'm not saying you do, but I'm
Mhm.
saying in general, the psychology is there for you to be able to pay for that ability to know who likes you, right?
It's a business.
But I don't think it's more so centered around business. I think they're able to make money off of the psychology of the fact you're able to know who likes you, right? So then you're able to control it, because then it becomes more about like there's no risk. Because when you remove dating apps, there was a point in time, I'm old enough to remember when dating apps became a thing. And then it was like you're dating on the internet. Like you're using apps to meet people, whereas that it used to be like you had to have the gumption, you had to have the courage, you had to have the balls, you had to have the ability to approach a woman in real time and say, I'm interested in you. I like you. I want to see you. I want to talk to you. Because even that became a coveted skill to a certain degree. Whereas that now, it's about your ability to then portray how you are.
It's performative.
In an app, it's performative. And then it's about your ability to then say the right thing using text messaging or messaging as opposed to the real energy exchange that would happen in real time and in person. So to me, that speaks to the psychology of rejection. That speaks to the psychology of protecting yourself. That speaks to the fact that like when you give human beings those kind of things, then they'll be like, yeah, then why wouldn't I?
So are you saying that dating apps have perpetuated or created a lot of situations where rejection is taking place? Is that what you're saying?
I don't think it was. I don't think
you're talking about the psychology of rejection. I'm trying to figure out where that's coming from.
Okay, so I think first and foremost, I think you're trying to say something about rejection.
No, I'm just trying to follow you.
So, for starters, right? Human beings don't like to be rejected. Is that fair?
Correct.
True.
Human beings don't like rejection. They don't like no, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, when you look at human beings, and then you look at the things that we would prefer not to do, or we would prefer not to experience, because it becomes strictly about experience. Because then if you don't have the premium features on the dating app, you're not able to curate the experience to then control it. Right?
It takes longer. Yes.
It takes longer because then it's more along the lines.
It's more work that you have to do. You have to bypass more profiles. I get it.
You have to go through the actual work. Whereas that if you had that ability in person, the rejection that you had to face in person in terms of approaching a person to be able to then either chat with somebody or make that happen in real time is much more harsh than it is online. So I don't think we can talk about the things that we're talking about and then remove the fact that all of these things that are coming into the equation, like apps, the internet, all of this stuff, and then we can't talk about them like, you know, they're here curating the experience of what it means to, you know, the difference between needs and wants. Because at the end of the day, human beings need other human beings.
Correct.
There's no way around our need to then connect with other people, to either want to reproduce or to meet other people. But then to me, it becomes something that is hijacked by the fact that you can play on the psychology of what you can avoid through wants.
It's again trying to make life easier, but then complicating life to be.
Because it's very long-winded, but I hope it got to the point.
It's as a man too, it's almost like kind of weird because you're right. Like you remember a time when you had to go out there and actually like try to talk to a girl. Now, nobody's trying to do that. I find people don't even have like real social skills anymore to even have
They don't
these kind of
exist.
conversations.
I think that dating apps have made the possibility of rejection and also the possibility of ghosting a lot easier to deal with. I think it's easier to reject someone that you've never met before. I think that it's easier to ghost someone that you've never met before. You can have exchanges, you can have conversations with them, but if there isn't that energy exchange in real life, then it doesn't feel like it's something real. And if something's not real, then I can just pretend that it's not there, it's not present.
Well, I think when we are, because I find have you guys seen the pop the balloon stuff?
Yeah, I see it.
Yes.
Sometimes.
I love those things.
They're hilarious.
They're hilarious
They are
because
freaking hilarious.
it shows just how fickle human beings are. Because
But that's what dating apps have done for us. There's just too many options. It's like Baskin
Baskin-Robbins.
Robbins? It's like
the
16
same thing
flavors.
with the food. It's like you need the food, but now there's so many different options.
there's so many different wants.
You wanted your lemonade.
Listen.
Jessica's gonna fight you. Jessica's like, you had lemonade?
Jessica, next time I'll
You
make
couldn't
you all the
just,
lemonade
you couldn't
you
just
want.
deal with water.
Jessica's gonna fight you to the death. Jessica, do it.
This was after like 2 weeks of being there. I was like, yo,
The funny thing is that where were you hiding the lemonade?
I swear I gave you some. It was
I
in the
don't
white
remember.
cup. You remember that white cup I kept bringing around?
No,
And I was leaving it on the table.
no, I don't.
Come on, bro. It was in the room, bro.
I don't remember.
Whatever, it doesn't matter. But
Maybe you
it
just
was
had.
there.
You were just hiding. You
I
were
know
playing
I,
it
ga-
real
I
close
gave
to
you
the
some.
chest.
You know how I know I gave you some?
I don't remember.
Because I gave some to Hatika. And Hatika was like,
Damn, nigga, you
need to make
snitching.
more.
You over here snitching, nigga. You over here like, I gave some lemonade to Hatika. Like, damn, nigga, you out here snitching. This nigga ain't shit, bro. Never doing anything illegal with you, nigga.
So would you say that he's a piece of shit because he didn't give you any lemonade?
No.
I know I gave him.
No.
He
I
just
wouldn't
doesn't
say he's a
remember.
piece of shit. I just think that's just ridiculous. This nigga had lemonade because we saw each other every day. We were hanging out every day. It's not like we were able to escape each other. We were doing the show out there.
I know
So
I
then I'm
gave-
like,
I know I gave you some.
I'm like, you had lemonade? I didn't even know you had lemonade.
He's
I don't
He doesn't
remember.
remember.
But why wouldn't I remember? I would remember something like lemonade because it's so far and few between.
Nah. I
Nigga.
had the cup with me all the time.
I don't remember that, bro. I don't
I
remember what
passed
the
you
cup
some
you're talking
lemonade, bro. I
about.
was like, yo, drink
I
this.
remember.
And he was like, oh yeah, how'd you make this? And I was like, this is cool.
I don't remember.
And you
But
went off and did your
anyway,
thing.
we're getting fucking sidetracked. Alexis is like, fools. Okay. All right. So back to what we were saying. Before you tried to throw a stake in between us, trying to be like, he didn't give you any lemonade. You can't pit us against each other. But back to what we were
Ate it
saying.
with the bread.
Huh?
We was drinking it with the bread.
I don't remember that, bro.
No, whatever.
It's neither here nor there, but who cares? But Jessica said I was 2 tenths down and you were secretly making lemonade. Yeah, tell him, Jessica. All right. So we got on this whole topic because we were debating about the difference between wants versus needs.
Okay.
And then how animals tie into the fact that, like, we have made them wants versus needs. How there's no real connection to the spiritual reasons of having animals present.
Okay.
So going back to that and how we got onto the conversation about, healing yourself and pouring back into yourself.
That was the whole conversation.
That was the whole
Jeez.
conversation. Before
Okay.
we there were a few exits we hit along the way on the highway of where we were. With that being said, where do you find yourself as someone that makes yourself available to other people as a healer that finds yourself at empty?
Say that one more time.
Where do you find yourself now as a healer that finds yourself at empty, that makes yourself available to other people still?
So I'm happy to report I am no longer on empty, but I will reflect on when I was empty. I'm still trying to understand your question. How?
What do you do? What are the things? What are the things that you do?
That.
Okay.
I answered that question already. Okay, so I'll re-answer the question.
No,
so
don't
it
re-answer
depends.
if you feel like you already answered
Well,
it.
no, I think it depends on my energy levels. And when I mean energy levels, it's how exhausted do I feel? Do I feel level 1 exhausted, which is like, mediocre exhaustion, level 2, which is like I'm really tired. Level 3 is like I am completely drained, wiped out, burnt out, and I have nothing to give anybody else, right? So depending on my energy levels, I will have different practices. So if I'm extremely burnt out, I'm watching reality TV and on TikTok. That's what I'm talking about, where like TikTok might be a need for some people because it helps people get through whatever it is that they're experiencing. So when I'm in level 3 burnout and I have absolutely nothing to give, reality TV is a need for my emotional well-being. That's going to help me get out of whatever it is that I'm feeling. It's going to numb my brain, which is sometimes a need or a want, depending on the conversation. But so I have different practices. So one of them is reality TV. One of them is just
Is the white light thing you mentioned before TV? Is that
white light.
I meant to ask
No,
that.
that's
What
more
way,
of
like-
like a visualization practice.
Oh,
right?
yeah, it's a protective bubble. So when I am feeling charged, when I'm feeling energized, when I'm feeling grounded, yes, I do a visualization every day before I start my morning, to make sure that I have a force field around me so that I'm not absorbing the energies that are in this world, right? The sadness, the anxiety, the worries, the doubts, the fears, the terror that somebody feels. So I do that when I am grounded. When I have the energy to do the things, I'm juicing. I'm cooking my meals. I am doing protective exercises. I am meditating. I am grounding. I am in nature when I have the energy.
So let me ask you this, because
When I'm not tired.
I find that this is almost like a prerequisite of like in people's spiritual journeys, is that like, okay, this is what I do for myself, right? And what I do for myself is that I do these protective things, right? Because ultimately everybody knows themselves better than anybody else, right? Now, when it
Correct.
comes to these practices, I find that what is the difference between the imaginative practices versus practical practices when it comes to pouring back into yourself as a healer?
What are the differences between imaginative practices and practical practices?
And practical practices.
What, in terms of like the benefit?
No, in general. Because I find that a lot of people tend to utilize the same practices that you're talking about, right? And for everybody, it's different. But what I find with healers, particularly people that find themselves as healers in the new age spaces, that find themselves as healers that are on the ground doing real things in the energy sense, they will talk a lot about like, okay, I use white lights, I use protective measures in terms of this and that, right? Now, what about using things that are outside of your energy? Because I don't find that to be things that people utilize in those spaces. I've heard people talk about utilizing white light. I've heard people talk about utilizing visualization. Aside from whatever it is particular to the person, because they can have their own particular practices, whether it be, you know, reality TV, whether it be TikTok, whatever it is, right? But then I find there to be a difference between how people protect themselves energetically versus how people kind of recharge themselves with their particular things that they're interested in. So for me, the question centers around, where are the real practices that people have available to them to recharge themselves that aren't?
I mean, I'm getting kind of, I'm focusing on the word real, and I'm getting hung up on that word because I don't know what you mean by real or imaginative, because you use that word imaginative.
I use
before.
imaginative. I use imaginative in the sense that conscious agreement. I understand what you're saying in terms of the white light protective force fields.
I have no idea.
But she has no idea.
Okay. All right. So, do you know what energy is?
I hope I do.
Okay. Is energy imaginative to you?
No.
Okay. Is energy real to you?
Yeah.
Okay. Is clearing, and do you wash your body? Do you shower?
Of course.
Okay. Why do you shower?
Why do I shower?
Yeah.
Because if I don't shower, at some point I'll start to stink.
You'll smell bad. Okay. So you wash your physical body. Okay. Do you wash your emotional body? Well, do you believe in different bodies?
Now I kind of have two questions.
Okay.
When you say emotional body, what exactly does that mean?
Okay. So we have, from my perspective, we have different bodies, right? So you have your physical body, which is your shell, it's your skeleton, your skin. Your emotional body is your feelings. It can be associated with your heart chakra, which is the center of emotions, compassion, forgiveness. So when I talk about my emotional body, I'm talking about my emotional well-being. I'm talking about my mood. I'm talking about the state in which I'm experiencing, you know, whatever is happening to me emotionally. So that's what I mean by your emotional body. Then you have the mental body, which are your thoughts. It can be your brain. And then you also have your spiritual body, which one could argue is, you know, your soul, your higher self, God, collective consciousness, that kind of stuff. So I ask if you wash your physical body because you have hygiene, you have good hygiene, you practice, you brush your teeth, you shower, because those are the things that are going to, allow people to want to be around you. It's going to allow you to get a job, keep friends, keep a partner, whatever. When it comes to white light, when it comes to visualizations, that is just spiritual hygiene. It is a way of cleansing our spiritual body. It's a way of cleansing our aura. That's also another kind of word that people use. And so it's very real. Just like your loofah and your soap is just as real. Does that help?
So I'm trying to really understand the concept of the white light, though, because how does that cleanse? First off, how do you define energy?
I don't know. Energy is
'Cause
everything and anything. I mean, words are energy, thoughts are energy, actions are energy. I think, even this bottle, one could argue that this bottle has energy. So I think when you ask what is energy, I would
So is the
argue
bottle
that everything and
energy, or
anything-
does the bottle contain energy?
It could be both.
Okay. So I'm still trying to understand the concept
So
of
with
the
white, so are you getting hung up on the idea of it being a light? Are you getting hung up on the idea of it being white? What are you getting
well,
hung
the whole
up
thing.
on?
I'm trying to understand the concept practically of how it
Mm-hmm.
cleanses you.
So
But again, I don't know if I can understand the concept if I don't understand the practical mechanism of the concept.
well, I think that it's hard to think about a white light practically because it's not tangible. So healers often wear white clothing.
Would you call
Do-
that imaginative?
I plead the fifth.
That's kind of like what I'm getting at. It's
But-
like what really makes energy itself something tangible.
Wait, what was the question?
What would make energy tangible?
What would make energy tangible? I would guess something that you could experience with your five senses.
So like an orgasm?
Yeah.
But would you? No,
So wait.
don't. No, that's gonna be a cop out. So we're not fucking going there. So let me ask you this, right?
Okay.
Because I understand what you're saying, right?
Okay. But you
But
don't
then-
understand, so I'm trying to get you to understand what I'm saying.
But this is why I'm saying he's the perfect person for you to ask the
Right.
question to, because I understand what you're saying,
Okay.
but I understand it to be imaginative.
Wait,
I
what's
don't-
imaginative? Energy?
No, no, no,
Wait,
no, no.
what's
no.
imaginative?
This practice that we're speaking of.
It's absolutely using your imagination. Yes. Are we disagreeing on that? Was I
No, no, no,
disagreeing?
See, that was my misunderstanding.
No,
I
we're
was
not
trying to
disagreeing.
understand
But I'm
what
saying-
makes it something real and
So I'm saying, how is it?
Well,
how
I
is it
mean,
actually
one
tangible?
could argue
and
that
useful?
anxiety is imagination. Is anxiety real?
You could consider it an overuse of imagination.
But it's an imagination. Like we are attempting to predict things that are not happening.
so
That's
then, why is
using
it
our
affecting
imagination.
people?
Because the mind has that much power.
So
Our
then,
thoughts have that much power over our reality. Perception is reality, right? So if we're perceiving things, even if we're imagining it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Even if we're imagining it, it's still part of our perception.
But
It's
what
still
if I
part of
can't
our
perceive
reality.
the reality?
so then, what makes a
know.
schizophrenic?
The way you said
What
that.
makes? Yeah, but these are tangible questions. So then, let me ask you this.
My
have a-
philosopher teacher is probably shaking his head right now.
Yeah,
Sorry, Dr.
they're
Dugan.
somewhere. Doctor who?
Dr. Kerry Dugan. He was awesome.
Dr.
But-
Carey. Yeah, whoever that is.
Anyway,
But yeah,
moving
shout
on.
out to them.
Yes.
Okay, so let me ask you this, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have your practices, and I'm asking you, what makes them tangible? Because to me,
I think you're asking the wrong question. Who
then
cares if
what's the
something
question?
is tangible?
Then why
It
would it be
matters.
a practice if it wouldn't be something practical
tangible.
and tangible?
do you eat checkers because you find it to be practical, or do you eat checkers because it feeds an emotional want?
It feeds an emotional want.
So then what makes that tangible?
The act of eating makes it tangible.
Okay. So then I'm asking you, the
Mhm.
white light and cleansing yourself using
Mhm.
the practice of the white light,
Mm-hmm.
what makes it tangible versus what makes it imaginative? Tangible meaning what
I
makes it
think-
real. Like you can literally, if I throw this at someone,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be like, that's tangible because it hit me in the head. Right?
Mhm.
But then what makes it tangible when you're working with someone versus imaginative? And the reason why I ask this is because I understand completely how to utilize these things that you're talking about.
Okay.
But I don't find them to be tangible. I find them to be imaginative depending upon whoever's using them.
Okay. I guess I'm still curious about what is the need for it to be tangible. So if something is imaginative and it's helpful, then I think that one could just say that it's helpful and then just move on. Like,
But then
why
is
does
it
it
really
have to
helpful?
be?
If that's the case.
But
If a person finds it helpful, absolutely. And that kind of goes back to, reality. If my reality is different than yours,
But is it tangible or is it an emotional thing? Is it eating checkers?
I think emotions
or
are
is it like-
tangible.
okay, so I just pinched you.
Okay.
Right? Is that tangible or is that imaginative?
That's tangible.
Okay, so then now you and I and Kajizariman and Taj all go to Checkers, which sounds great right now, right? Checkers, if you wanna sponsor us, then come on down and sponsor us, right? Roscoe just meowed. That's tangible, right? So then we all four of us go to what do you call it? Checkers, right? Now, you and your interaction and your emotional want with eating checkers is different from my emotional want.
So is that tangible or is that abstract?
It
I don't
depends on
know.
the person, right?
I would argue that it depends on the person.
It depends on the person, but then what makes it tangible?
I don't have an answer for that.
But everybody's gonna eat.
That's the only thing that makes it
At
tangible.
the end of the day, everybody's gonna
Is
eat.
that everyone's going to eat.
You need to eat,
right?
and you're gonna eat. That's it.
Okay.
Okay, now, Todd, you can open the door for Roscoe so that he's not over there meowing. Add him as a necessary component of chaos, right? No, it's too late. Here comes Roscoe. Since we were talking about Roscoe, here he comes. So, oh yeah, you gotta close the window. So, the tangible aspect is the fact that we're all going to eat, right?
Okay.
But the emotional want is what makes it different. That makes it imaginative. That makes it abstract because it's different from person to person. Now, you might eat
Okay.
checkers, and then after you eat checkers, you're like, I feel great. He might eat checkers, and after he eats checkers, he's like, I don't feel good.
I feel like
Right? And then he might eat checkers, and he might be like, I feel like I want to go do this again, or I don't ever want to do it again, right? It
Okay.
depends. That's not tangible. That's abstract depending upon whoever you are. But the only tangible thing is the fact that everyone ate. So to me, I don't find the practices that a lot of people utilize in the New Age spaces to be tangible. I find them to be imaginative because it's very difficult to know how it actually affects each person.
Correct.
So then to me, it's sort of like, what are we doing as healers to practically, tangibly feed our spirit, feed ourselves?
I don't have an answer for you because I think that what I focus on and what I care about might be different than what you're trying to focus on and what you're caring about. I think that I focus on, is it helpful or is it not helpful to me? And I think for you, you want to focus more on why it's helpful or the mechanics of why it's helpful. And for me, I'm not particularly very interested in the mechanics of that. So I think that when you experience something, it can feel tangible. It can feel practical for you. I think that, if you ask somebody if they've experienced the Holy Ghost, does it really matter if it's practical or abstract or tangible or imaginative? They had that experience and it felt good for them. So I think for me, I'm simply focusing on whether something's helpful or not the mechanics of whether it's helpful, how it's helpful, logistically how it's helpful. So perhaps that's why I'm struggling with the line of questioning, because if you try something and it's helpful, then you keep doing it. If it doesn't work, then you don't do it.
You know, one thing I've learned about spirituality, or a way I usually relate it to people who sometimes ask certain kind of questions, is like spirituality is almost like business in a way.
I think it's personal.
It's yeah, but when I say it's like business, it's almost like very transactional. Because you mentioned something earlier, you were like spirit guided you, and we asked basically like, what do you mean by spirit? You said God, the universe, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
It's a very imaginative practice, believing in God.
Yes, but the thing is, from our perspective, spirits themselves are an actual, real, tangible thing. Now, spiritually, if you're doing something or you're able to like utilize certain things to help people, then it becomes a question of like, what is giving you the ability to do it?
So how
And
is
then
how
do
is
you
spirit
have an
tangible?
exchange with those things?
How is spirit tangible for you?
That's a very good question. So, first off, what do you understand a spirit to be?
Oh no, I'm asking you that question. So
No, I'm gonna answer it.
Well, I define spirit. So spirit for me
Like,
is
again, it's just
soul.
like
It's
God.
the essence. It's the essence of who you are. It could be your higher self. It could be your guardian angels. It could be your spirit guides. It could be your ancestors. It could be God. It could be collective consciousness. So that's my understanding of what spirit is. So I'm curious how for you might have a different definition of spirit. And that might kind of lead into why you think spirit is tangible.
So, when we say spirit, to make it simple, spirit basically means the identity of an entity. So
Okay.
meaning like you as an individual, you're an entity, he's an entity, I'm an entity, he's an entity, but that entity comes with an actual
Are you talking about
identity.
the vessel entity? Like what?
You
what
can
is
say that.
your- Okay.
You can say that. But that entity comes with an identity. And the spirit itself is the identity of the entity. Does that make sense?
Nope. But that's okay. Nope.
Okay, so look at your phone.
Okay.
Like, when you look at your phone.
Oh, you.
This is a
I thought you sent
Okay.
me
perfect
So,
example.
look
Perfect
like
example.
your phone.
Okay.
Okay, what do you consider to be the body of your phone? Like, what would you consider a
the
human
phone?
being to be composed of?
Oh, mind, body, spirit.
Mind, body, spirit. So,
Physical body, emotional body.
according to the Kemetic archives, we understand a human being to be composed of 4 components, right?
Okay.
So there's the body, the spirit, the soul, and the name.
The name. Okay.
Which is confusing because a lot of people nowadays confuse spirit and soul.
Confuse it, right? So then looking
well,
at a phone.
I mean, it depends on what you believe in, but
So if you look at a phone, right, what would you consider to be the body?
I don't know, the case, the form of the phone,
The physical phone, right?
physical form of the phone.
What would you consider to be the soul?
I
Come here, Russ.
I don't think a cell phone has a soul.
We're speaking
Oh, I don't know. I can't answer that question for
metaphorically.
you.
We're speaking
I can't-
metaphorically.
I
Well,
don't know.
Let's kind of define soul and spirit again, right?
Hold on.
I couldn't tell you.
So
Ow!
what would you? It's Roscoe. Come on.
This is why
Yeah,
I said
now
to
he
keep
can-
him upstairs.
Now he can go back upstairs. Here, Taj, can you put him back upstairs now? Because now that we let him out, then he's gonna understand why he needs to be upstairs. Okay, so you have this motherfucker, man.
Aw. Sorry, Roscoe, but you hurt me.
No, Roscoe's fine. So
Look at
you
my
ha-
phone.
look
Oh,
at your phone.
I can't metaphorically
Okay, so
can't tell
metaphorically, what
I
would you
don't know.
consider the components of a phone?
you. The physical body, so what I can hold.
Okay, the phone, the physical phone
The
itself,
physical
right,
phone.
which could be manufactured by Samsung,
And
Apple, right? And then what else?
then memory, storage.
Okay, that could be like what we consider maybe, depending upon the direction we go in, it could be like the soul or the spirit or the name,
Okay.
right? So then what would you consider the phone number?
I don't know.
Like you could consider it like the identity, right?
Sure. Okay.
All right. So you take your SIM card, right?
Okay.
And then you move it from one phone to another phone.
Okay.
So then what would you consider that? Would you consider that the identity being dependent upon the cell phone number, or the identity to being dependent upon the physical aspect of the phone?
I have no idea. I've never thought about this.
Okay, but I'm asking you.
This is
If
very
you lose
complicated
this-
on a Friday night.
if
It's the
you
end of my
lose-
week. I am tired, and you're asking me to use my last 5% brain cells to talk about whether or not the phone number associated with my phone and the SIM card is the same or different. I don't know.
Okay, so if you take your SIM card and move it from this physical phone and move it to another physical phone,
Okay. So then the SIM card might be the soul.
the soul, what would you would consider the soul?
Yes.
Right?
Because you can take the soul out of a vessel,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still the meat and potatoes are in the SIM card.
The meat and potatoes are in the SIM card. So that would be, that is what we would consider in the Kemetic way of thinking, right?
Okay.
The soul and the spirit are kind of reversed. So what we consider soul in the Western society is what we would consider the spirit, right?
Okay.
Whereas that the soul is what you would consider the charge, the electricity coursing through the phone. So if your phone, depending upon what charge it's holding, if it's at 88% versus maybe 50%,
Okay.
or if it's 4% versus 2%, the soul is what this universe as we know it, or the existence as we know it, the whatever you want to call it, the thing that we all exist in, that we all find ourselves in existentially, is then powering the phone, right? That would
Okay,
be
so are
what
you
consider the soul.
saying no? I would consider I'm really trying to compute. I would consider the soul, the SIM card, and I would consider spirit the charger.
Okay, so whatever. We're just gonna agree to disagree on the nomenclature.
Wait.
Right? We're gonna agree to disagree on the nomenclature, but we're gonna agree to say
What's
that
a nomenclature? I've heard that word before, but I don't know what
it's
what it's called.
the way you name it, right?
Oh,
It
okay.
would be
So
the-
like tomato, tomato.
exactly
potato,
tomato,
potato.
tomato, right?
Got it.
So we're gonna agree to disagree on the nomenclature, but at the end of the day, we're saying essentially the same thing, right? So then you have to have the physical vessel. You have to have the
Correct.
identity, which would be the phone number, because that's what's going to move from vessel to vessel. And then you have to have
I'd
the
say
thing,
the SIM card.
whatever, the SIM card. The SIM card then has the identity, right?
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
Carries a number.
Because it
Yeah.
carries the phone number, right? The SIM card is what matters because it's the aspect that carries the identity, right? So then you then have to understand it to then be a little bit different, right?
Okay.
Where you then have to now have the name, right? Because that's how you then quantify the identity. So if the SIM card is the identity, then the phone number is how you then differentiate that identity from another identity. Does that make sense?
It does.
In a
Period.
nutshell, in a
Period.
nutshell, that's you.
Okay.
You have a body, you have the energy that gets you going,
Okay.
you have the thing in you that transfers into different bodies. Now we're talking about reincarnation. And then you have a name that identifies that thing that transfers into different bodies. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
Well, we got on this for other. It wasn't to make a fucking point by using a metaphor about the phone
Yeah, no.
for something. We were talking about this in regards to how we got on this conversation, right?
Okay. How do we get on this
It's
conversation?
really what we're literally saying now is like we have to first, before we can understand if something is tangible versus imaginatory, we have to understand the mechanisms of it. So we have to understand what is the soul, the spirit, whatever, and what's happening to somebody when they're using a certain practice.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I think that a spiritual practice is a very personal, it's personal. I think that my practice is going to be vastly different than yours. So I think that,
Going to Checkers.
going to Checkers is different, right? It's a different experience.
It's different for everybody.
It's different for everybody. So I think that it's going to be very difficult to quantify or to qualify an experience that you're not actually having.
I think because earlier tonight, when we were on our way to the store, you asked a question, and I think now is the perfect time to get into that question.
Okay.
And the question was, okay, then, what is culture? And the reason why I bring that up is because when people say like a spiritual practice is very personal, or it's like it fits them or it's to them, the interesting thing is, but then where does the idea of spirituality come from? Or the idea of having spiritual practices come from?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, it's a question.
So you're asking me, where does spirituality come from?
Yeah, like this idea, this concept of spirituality and the concept of doing spiritual practices, where does that really come from?
I don't know.
So,
Are you talking about the actual word? Are you talking about the culture of spirituality?
just period, because during this whole talk we've been having, we've been mentioning a lot about like New Age spirituality, and like New Age spirituality involves a lot of different practices and so on and so on and so on.
I mean, I wouldn't
But-
consider my spirituality New Age, but I understand what you're saying.
So what would you consider it?
I would consider it a hybrid of practices that have been promoted, that have been experienced throughout various different cultures.
So then, if it's about experiences and practices from cultures, then wouldn't it have made sense that the cultures that experience or practice those practices had an actual practical reasoning or logic behind the practice that doesn't make it imaginatory? You get what I'm saying?
Yes, I guess.
I guess ultimately, like what, to kind of just interject a little bit, I think what Kajazariman, the point he's trying to make is that, like, why don't you eat other human beings?
Because it's not culturally accepted. I think
Why
that would
is
be
it
the
not culturally accepted?
In some places it is.
Wait,
Well,
why is it not cultural?
in the culture that I am a part of,
Okay.
it's not appropriate. It's not acceptable.
So then we can agree that there are examples of what's culturally accepted, what's not culturally accepted, right? So then ultimately, when we really sit and we are going to want to break down what we consider culture, then we have to say to some degree that culture is something that comes from within, that you cultivate, and then you therefore then project it outside, right? So
Okay.
it's something that comes from within to then project outside. And then it becomes something that is then indicative, that is accepted or not, depending upon the way everybody else then accepts it and utilizes it or not, right? So it's
Okay.
agreed upon, but it's agreed upon because it's partaken
It's universal.
by other people. It's not just like imaginative, for lack of a better term, right? It's not just individually based, right?
As opposed to nowadays, it seems like people have taken that and made it something to the individual. But if you're talking about spirituality, again, you're dealing with culture, and culture is really like the amalgamation of customs. And those
Okay.
customs bring values, and those values bring principles, which then a society or a group of people live by. So then when you say spirituality is like individual, it almost goes against the concept of spirituality to begin with.
I mean, I think we're going to agree to disagree on that. I think that it's clear that we come from different philosophies. I think that that's very obvious at this point. For me, I think of spirituality, I think of a connection with something higher than yourself. I think of a connection with yourself.
Yeah, your spirit.
So your spirit.
Yeah.
So things that
Your
are
soul.
going to develop. No, the SIM. It's still the SIM card.
It's the SIM card.
It's a SIM card. It's a SIM because you can still have the same number, but if you change the SIM, then it's a different cell phone.
Cue the mind blown gif.
So spirituality, I think, for me, is just, like you said, an amalgamation of customs, right? And so I get to decide what customs I want to perpetuate, what customs I want to create or maintain. And I think that's what I mean by it's personal. It's a personal culture.
So we have a very long rapid fire segment. That's the next segment of the show that we're gonna have to.
Oh, this was not rapid
transition.
fire?
No, this
Jeez.
is not rapid fire. Brace yourselves. But let's get into the questions first. So in the chat, Warrior Zul Bukande, or Kem Warrior Zul Bukande, is asking, does a Kemetic society of Africa have a concept of awakening like Buddhism? Is that the correct way of Is this the correct way of enlightenment? I don't really know if I understand your question properly, but I mean the process of like what you consider. All right, so there's no such thing as like what you consider. Roscoe's in the background meowing because he wants to come out. So it's like it's so hard to focus when Roscoe's in the background. So what you consider enlightenment is essentially like when you look at that word, you're looking at there being essentially something within you radiating light, right? So enlightenment, right? So to some degree, enlightenment as you know it is what you would consider a process of light then coming from within, right? So the way that you would then contextualize that comes from what is known as the Kemetic temples that originated in the Nile Valley. So out of the Nile Valley, there were temples that committed themselves to a particular way of life. This commitment to this particular way of life was then known as something, right? It was known as a particular way of living. It was known as a particular way of cultivating yourself, a particular way of bringing something that was within outward, right? So this particular way of living and this particular way of interacting with the existence, interacting with the universe, was contextualized in a very specific way that allowed people to then say that they were, belonging to or originating from a particular type of culture. And this is where you then have this understanding of what people would consider enlightenment. So it's not that there isn't the existence of what you would consider enlightenment in the Kemetic society. It's that the particular way of living, what you would consider enlightenment, was so commonplace in the Kemetic society that it wasn't something that anybody else would consider what we consider it today, because everybody utilized it and everybody was doing it.
It's just a lifestyle.
It's just a
It's
lifestyle.
a lifestyle kind of thing. Because, again, culturally, when you're talking of, like, enlightenment comes with a kind of a sense of realization So every single day was a day for you to realize, like, you're kind of like your evolution. So you live your life that way because your evolution was predicated again on not just like one life, but many lifetimes. So the idea is you live good in this life, so in your next life you can do better and you can continue to evolve and continue to evolve. So that's, in a sense, what we would consider enlightenment. It's a continuing process. It never stops.
That's why in Buddhism you have this sense of like people speaking of trying to like escape the wheel of reincarnation, because Buddhism is a derivative of the Kemetic civilization in that it came from very specific temples. So Buddhism is what we would consider something that comes from like a Setian temple, where then you would have someone that would say like, hey, I want to now escape the wheel of reincarnation by doing particular things. Because in order to, even when you go to Verizon or you go to, since we're on this whole metaphor of phones, when you go to Verizon, you go to AT&T, and then you want to get a new phone. And then they're like, okay, what's your leverage to now get a new phone? A lot of times you have to trade something in. So if you say, well, I don't have a phone to trade in, then they're like, well, okay, this is what it's going to be. But if you have a phone to trade in, then they'll be like, okay, well, we'll do it this way. It will be like this. It will be like that. So we understand reincarnation to be a constant and consistent negotiation. So when you want to reincarnate after you have lived a particular life, you then have to go and then say, well, this is what my life was in the past, and this is what I want it to be now that I come back. So in Buddhism, they understand their particular belief system to be escaping the wheel of reincarnation. So then they say, well, in order to escape the wheel of reincarnation, you have to then do certain things to then make it so that you can then therefore not reincarnate. So you can do things like get rid of the phone, and then it becomes very difficult for you to then get another phone because you don't have something to trade in to get the other phone. I'm speaking very metaphorically, but I'm speaking very metaphorically for people to be able to understand without getting into a lot of the nitty-gritty of the things, so that it doesn't go over people's heads.
You know what I find interesting in some Buddhist temples? The priests get mummified, but they only get mummified so they can ensure that they're coming back reincarnating to help people not reincarnate. That's
well.
It's
the other thing is that
crazy.
when you look at like, is that the Buddhism?
Yeah.
When you look at Buddhism and then you look at like how they contextualize whether or not someone was the Buddha before, they look at whether or not you're able to identify the items from the past life and like do those kind of things. Like, okay, can this person contextualize themselves based on the past life without having someone walk them through what it was? But I just find it interesting because when you really look at it, then it just kind of seems like anyone with a predisposition would be able to maybe possibly do that.
Yeah, but we're not here to. We're not here to start a war with
conversation for another day.
Yeah.
But for those that understand what we're saying, you'll understand what we're saying. The other question is, if the Kemetic Society of Africa
I'll
or
go up there and be
Kebtah,
a Buddha.
yeah, I mean, anyone with a spiritual predisposition could go up there and do it technically. How would our Kemetic ancestors... Okay, I'm sorry. If the Kemetic Society of Africa or Kebtah possesses all knowledge of the Nile Valley, why not develop the continent? Why are the Chinese building everything? It's not to say that we aren't... What was that?
I'm getting hungry. I've hit my...
You've hit your limit?
You out of mangoes?
Eat.
Can I have that?
Yeah, that was for you.
Okay.
That was for you the whole time. Because we knew the Cookie Monster was coming, so we placed that there strategically. So it's not that, at the end of the day, yes, the Kemetic Society of Africa, Kebtah, possesses the knowledge coming from the Nile civilization. Now, it depends on the way you're contextualizing what you consider to be building. Because what are they building? Because the Chinese are bringing the modern way of life and modern things, whereas who said that the Kemetic civilization needs any of that? Because the Kemetic civilization is not something that's predicated upon the modern way of living. The modern way of living is a derivative and is a spawn of the Kemetic civilization. So that kind of thinking is reversed. It's kind of like what came first, the chicken or the egg, but then you're totally neglecting the fact that you are even able to kind of ask that question, what comes first, because you exist to begin with, if that makes sense.
Yeah. One other thing I'd like to add, remember the video I sent you of that Nigerian guy? He made a very good point.
That guy's, what guy? You talking about that guy's Nigerian?
Yeah, he's Nigerian.
Oh, wow.
So he said the problem is we tend to look at like quote unquote third world countries as underdeveloped. But you have to understand that third world countries cannot be developed simply because the concept of development comes from the Industrial Revolution, which comes from the idea of colonialism and slavery. Simply meaning for you to be a developed country or developed, you have to have somebody else under your thumb. Meaning you have to be an imperialist, you have to be an imperial power to be able to now use and steal and pillage resources from other places to make your place wealthy. So that's the concept of development. So when you talk about why don't we develop this and that way, it's a kind of like a mental flip you have to switch, because we tend to think modernization means better life or better living, and that's just not necessarily the case. Not to say, all of Africa is just going to go back and everybody goes into mud huts and everything like that. Not saying that it's going to happen, but understanding that development in first world countries is all about politics. We're not here for politics. We're here for a cultural and a spiritual revolution. It's different than having development in a modern world, because development in modern worlds means giving up culture. Because if you look at the first world countries, all of them are lacking what we're talking about, which is culture. So that's not what we're necessarily here for.
Like I said, we're going to have a very long rapid fire segment. We're going to have a very long rapid fire segment. So I'm going to work our way through these questions very fast because I don't want to neglect them. How would our Kemetic ancestors handle the humiliation of the transatlantic slave trade, the dehumanization of Africa, and colonialism? They handled it in the past. They handled it in the past because colonization is not a new thing. I was joking around with somebody earlier, and I was saying that I think I finally understand where colonization comes from, and I think it comes from white women. And the reason why I say that is because I think white men were sitting there dealing with white women, and they were like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. It's better for me to go out and to colonize and to kill and to rape and pillage and take over the rest of the world and the planet and other people rather than sit here and listen to my wife.
What the hell was this conversation?
Alexis is like, I don't even want to say anything. and the thing is that that's not, it's not something to think about. Like, pieces of shits have existed since the dawn of time. Like, don't think that colonization is something that comes from the modern way of living only. Colonization comes from a seed. It comes from a seed that has been around since the dawn of humanity as we know it, in terms of something that can exist within the heart. So it's something to understand in terms of something to then work against and not give into, because it's very easy to give into your carnal impulses. It's very easy to give into your impulses and then just do as you please and do as you want instead of working against it. Working against it takes effort. It's not easy to be a good person and to be helpful to people. It's very easy to be destructive and to go against people and to destroy and to just be like, you know what? I'm going to fuck this up, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. So they understood that, and that's what's at the basis of enlightenment. Enlightenment has to do with going against what we consider to be the natural inclination of being a human being. Because it's not being a human being is just going to come with just it's being easy to be good. You have to be raised within certain environments to understand what is good, what's not good, what is right, what's not right. That's why I asked the question to Alexis earlier, how do you know not to eat other human beings? But if you grow up in a society where all you do is eat other human beings, you're going to be like, what's wrong with that?
It's like, yo, where's Taco?
I'm going to be like, yeah, Taj looks...
We
Yeah.
fought, and then, I hit him in the head. I just ate him, man. I ate him.
And then I cooked Taj for dinner. And so it depends on how you've been raised and where it comes from. But anyway, what kind of relationship would Africa have with some members of the diaspora or diaspora that claim everything other than their ancestral roots? At the end of the day, if you're a goat and you don't think you're a goat, it doesn't change the fact that you're a goat. Has the dynamic relationship change between men and women? Why are women having fewer babies? Is it just modernism? Yes, it is.
That was a short one.
Yeah, that's a short one. Yeah, that's modern. That's why, because you wouldn't have this notion of like birth control, because when you really look at what's really the problem in this day and age, is you're going against the natural aspects of the human being, in that birth control fucks with your body to stop it from its natural occurring process. And I don't think we're able to say what the long-term effects of birth control are on people, because
It makes them insane.
I mean, I don't know.
No, I'm actually telling you this because I had a girl who told me this because she was on birth control and she was dealing with it, and she would always say like she doesn't understand why she gets so angry and emotional. Of course, women tend to be, dare I say, a little bit more emotional than men.
Alexis is open,
like,
Alexis. But Alexis is like, I want to get out of here.
I am not having this conversation right now.
Okay, but long story short, she basically told me that there's like hormones that's released from the birth control, and it fucks up your estrogen levels.
It depends on the person, but it's not everybody. But continue.
Yeah, but for the most part. But other than that, it's also causing like different kind of complications in a lot of women's wombs, which also leads to other kind of
But
issues.
there's so many different things. I mean, because there's also like there's the ideas that a lot of people have and the ideologies that a lot of people have, that they're like, I don't want to reproduce. And they're like, I don't want to bring a child into this world. I don't want to do this, and I'd rather adopt, and I'd rather do this, and then I'd rather do that. And like people are like, reproducing doesn't give you an identity, and then like they don't want the identity of reproducing. So there's a lot of different things. There's a lot of different ways. I don't know if you have anything to add, because I'm not a woman. So I don't know if you have anything to say in terms of why people are choosing not to have as many babies in this day and age.
I think that there's different theories. The first one that comes to my mind is perhaps the you mentioned like the modernization. Women have more options. Women have more choices. One of those options is to get birth control. They have options of which birth control they want. So I think that the more options that you have, the more you're going to explore what works best for you. what works for me might not work for other women, and vice versa. And I think that that's the same conversation that I'm having about spirituality. It's a very personal choice. I think also, there's another theory that you can think about is marriage and the division of assets. And we don't really own a lot anymore. So one could argue that if we don't own a lot, then we don't really have much to pass down to people. So what's the point of having kids if there's nothing really to pass down to? So I think that also like gender roles are changing as well. So the conversation of need versus want also kind of comes into this as well.
Nice. So, then the next question is, so DeMarcus is asking, so your energy is related to your soul. And when you say energy, do you mean physical or some other kind of energy? I don't understand. How related is your soul to your emotions or mental health? Okay.
That's that can go very deep.
It can.
Oh, you're gonna say something?
No, I mean, you can answer if you want.
Yeah, that's a very deep question, but for the short of it, because we got a lot to go through. When we talk about your soul, essentially, from a traditional perspective, the soul is considered like the energy. It's like the life force that's coming from the universe itself. It's almost like the thing that makes everything go, like you said, the electricity. That's that energy, that force that the universe gives and provides to every living being on the planet. And it gives you that in order for you to be able to move, maneuver, and just be functional and operate. That can show up in ways of like the ability for you to just be able to move, if you want to call that physical, but also like the ability for you to be able to think, the energy it takes, because it takes energy to think, it takes energy to speak, it takes energy to walk. All these things take energy. It's not just like a stagnant thing. Like, this is why.
Yeah, but
Yeah. Long story short, the soul is the energy that the universe gives you or feeds you with.
And the thing is that you can have a different soul every day, because when you go to sleep, that's why like when people, depending upon what time of the day, like some people think better or they function better at night when everybody else is asleep, because there's not as many souls active at that time. So then everyone is using souls on other parts of the world, because there's a lot of people that are sleeping, because a lot of people, depending upon their rhythm that they find themselves living according to, won't be active at the time in the middle of the night. So the energy is crisper, the energy is cleaner, because there's not as many souls active at that time. So there's a lot that goes into it, but like I said, we're not going to go into all of it right now because, I know we have a very large rapid fire segment. How related is your soul to your emotions or mental health? It's ultimately related, because emotions, depending upon your relationship with emotions, can be huge, depending upon how how able you are to maybe accomplish your goals in life. Because if you can overcome your emotions, then life becomes very simple. But if you become someone that's solely emotionally driven or solely reliant upon your emotions, then it becomes very difficult for you to then maybe do things that are logical, or to understand how to do things in a way that exist outside of the emotional realm. So emotions come to play a huge part, because we even understand emotions to be the only thing that make us different from the gods, because gods don't have emotions. So when you remove emotions from a human being, you have a very dangerous type of entity. You have a very dangerous type of individual. Even we have someone coming from the psychology realm, like when you have someone that doesn't have emotions and doesn't function off of emotions, because even you could say like compassion or sympathy or empathy is something.
Sociopath.
sociopath. Like, would you consider a sociopath someone safe or dangerous, depending upon how they function?
Dangerous.
So emotions, your relationship to emotions is huge, depending upon if they exist or not.
Just to add on to that, it's like, again, going back to the concept of universe feeding you the energy you need to accomplish the things you need to accomplish every day. The interesting thing is you always find people who have a job, but then you have people who say they have a purpose. And you find that people who are doing things in the world that are like actually helping people and they're actually fulfilling the needs of people and are actually doing things bigger than them or stepping out of their own comforts to actually put impact into the world, you find that those individuals tend to be lighthearted and happy because the existence itself will even feed you good energy and make you feel good just for you being, I was going to say useful, but you putting out what you need in terms of you fulfilling your destiny on the planet.
The other question is, speaking on all this, why would people choose not to reincarnate? People would choose not to reincarnate because people think that this is all there is to it. So then when you don't have a education or an experience outside of anything that you consider to be the physical, then you're going to say that this is it. That's why people are always being indoctrinated with this like YOLO type of thing, because it's like when you think you only live once and when you remove reincarnation from people's Rolodex of what they consider ideologies, then people then are more inclined to be like, well, my life doesn't matter. And if my life doesn't matter, then people are then more inclined to say, then what I do doesn't matter. Then what I then engage in doesn't matter. So then you have people that are like, well, why wouldn't I go then center my life around the things that become tangible to me depending upon what's easily accessible or most available? And that's why a lot of people tend to center their lives around pleasure. A lot of people tend to center their lives around instant gratification. That's why a lot of people right now, it's so difficult for them to break out of everything that's being put in front of them, because everything is centered around instant gratification, because it's centered around, oh, well, do this, scroll here, look at this, look at that, look at this, look at that, don't look at that, don't look at that, do this, do that. And then people are like, yeah, let me do that, let me do this, let me do that, let me do that, because then it's centered around instant gratification, what they feel, what they can contextualize depending upon what they can utilize with the five senses. That's why it's very difficult for people to look at the moon and then say what's on the other side of the moon, because you then have to use something that exists outside of the 3D dimension or something that you can use within the 3D dimension, because what's on the other side of the moon is only what you can see outside of the 3D. So it's not possible to, I mean, yeah, you can escape reincarnating, but not for the right reasons per se. But I mean, depends upon the way you look at it, I guess. Yeah, you could escape reincarnation or not, for good reasons and bad reasons.
I wouldn't recommend it.
All right, we're going to move on to rapid fire because we're going to be here forever. So without further ado, this is our segment of the show.
Oh, we're not doing. That wasn't rapid fire.
That's not right. That was just the
We're
questions.
just answering questions.
We're just answering questions. Don't worry. It's coming soon.
I warned you.
Huh?
I warned you.
Well, I'm not afraid of you, Alexis. Todd, the floor is yours.
Ujai. So our first topic of the day would be, did you know? Goodbye is a shortened form of God be with you, which people in the old England would say to each other.
I didn't know that. But goodbye. May the God be with you. Next.
It makes sense. Good God.
For our first rapid fire, I think this is Democratic Republic Congo, offers
DRC.
yes, offers us access to a 20 trillion deposit in exchange for protection against violent rebel groups that have taken over Eastern Democratic Republic Congo.
Us? What do you mean by us?
I mean the U.S.
Against violent, I think so.
I'm gonna assume you meant the U.S. Okay.
Yeah, I mean you guys.
Yes, U.S.
U.S.
Yes, U.S. access. I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was both in caps. But everything is in caps, so how would you know?
So wait, let me get this straight. They're offering access to what exactly? Like,
It says $20 trillion deposit in exchange for protection against violent rebel groups that have taken over the Eastern Democratic Republic
20 trillion
Congo.
I don't. It's kind of hard for me to follow. I don't understand what's being said.
Right. Neither do I, but I can do a quick Google search for you.
I mean, you don't have. They didn't send you the articles.
No, that's
Like,
not.
the whole article. All right. So next.
It's gonna be a quick rapid fire.
Yeah.
China makes batteries that run on gravity, could be in for lithium ion. I think I said that word right. Lithium.
I mean, yeah. I mean, when you look at, to me, that makes sense that you would have things that run off of naturally occurring things, as opposed to lithium ion, because lithium ion batteries run off of a charge that has to then be produced.
Mhm.
So then, to me, like, yeah, it would make sense that you would make batteries based on gravity. So
Mhm.
I mean, shout out to China.
no, my question for China is, what do you consider as gravity?
Gravity, nigga. What they consider gravity.
You know the fuck I
I know what you mean, but that's gonna go over everybody's head. It's whatever the fuck they use is gravity.
Okay. That's it.
Our next one. Nurse punished for calling transgender pedophile Mr.
Transgender pedophile?
That's what it says. Unless I said the word wrong. Transgender pedophile Mr.
Hold on. Todd, I'm forwarding you the document with all of the articles, so you can then give us the context.
Yeah, because
Yeah, because if you're just giving us like this aspect, then it's gonna be very difficult. Then we're just doing like sensationalism.
sensational.
Sensational.
Did you give me access?
I don't know what half of these questions are asking, so I'm just gonna stay quiet.
You know.
We're all waiting.
We're all trying to figure that
Full
out.
description.
Who's Kim Ways? I know. She's like, that's all I care about. But the more and more I look at you, the more and more I'm like, you look like Doja Cat.
He said that last week.
But he didn't say that to me, so. Yeah,
That's
you
great.
did. Yeah, but Doja Cat is weird.
That's actually the dance that I sent you. That's Doja Cat. That song.
Oh, you're talking about from your dance class? That's Doja Cat song? I didn't know that. Kim said that I listened to Doja Cat.
Check out her song Move. It's really cute.
I know
It's campy.
I know that song.
You guys ready? So it says a nurse was punished after accidentally addressing a transgender pedophile as Mr. The pedophile, a patient from a high security men's prison called Jennifer, 40, that's only her last name, Miss Melly, who was investigated and disciplined by the hospital in October of 2024, was with a final warning and a referral to the Nursing and Midwifery Council. Should I continue? Do we get the gist of what is being told here?
Yeah, I mean, how was she punished? What did they do to her?
I said blah blah blah.
Who the hell put this on the rapid fire? Like who
Are these people
Who
that
sent this
are
article?
watching currently and they're
They're being
These are submitted, and then
Oh.
they're submitted as like headlines and like topics that like they want us to give a take on.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
they're not telling me how.
It's okay.
she's
Next.
being- yeah,
It's okay. That sucks. Sorry to be that lady. Just
This is
call
very
that
interesting.
guy a woman. If it makes
Zulu King shocks polygamous society with decisions to divorce first wife.
You mean Zulu King?
That's what I said.
I thought you said zoo.
No, I said Zulu, but the L was kind of like with the U, so it sounded like zoo, but it was Zulu.
So the
Why is he
Zulu
divorcing
King
his
divorced
first wife?
Yeah.
Why is he divorcing the first wife?
Okay, I'm not saying his name, but I'm gonna try. King Mizuzulu Kaz early this year overturned generations of Zulu royal traditions and family discretions to publicly file for a split from mother of children. While Zulu King have traditionally practiced polygamy with no limit to the number of wives they might have, divorce did not take place. And if it did, it was kept out of the public eye, making the King recent announcement such a bombshell.
Well, I guess
That's
the Zulu
modernization.
Culture, yep.
That's modernization right
Zulu
there,
culture
but whatever.
changed.
Well,
Patriarchy.
the thing that I find interesting is that in polygamy, normally there's no divorce.
Exactly.
So, how bad does that marriage have to be that you're like, fuck this, I'm getting divorced? Because normally there's like no escape in polygamy. Like, you're with the person forever. Like, there's no escape. So, even if you go and then you get a second wife, you can't get rid of your first wife. There's no way. Like, you have to keep your first wife. So, to me, it just begs the hilarious question, like, what happened?
Or
Yeah,
he
it
probably
doesn't
wanted
say
to.
at all. Taj?
No.
I don't think it
Maybe he
says.
just
It
wanted to show
says-
how powerful he could be. He essentially changed the entire culture. It sounds like he changed the
No,
laws
you
of the
can't-
land.
No, you can't. No,
That-
Oh, he
that's-
didn't?
No,
That's
no,
not
there's
how-
no, there's no
that's why it's a
explanation of
headline.
why.
That's why I said. You can't just do that shit just because you want to.
He might not live.
Yeah. So he's probably not gonna be the king for much longer.
Yeah, they're gonna.
Yeah,
Get outta
probably,
here.
they're either gonna take him out, or he's not gonna be the king for much longer. I can't imagine that going over well with the culture. But
Next question. Dubai, or next rapid fire. Dubai housewife breaks down how she spends over 230K in monthly allowance with a specific budget for luxury shopping. The influencer candidly broke down her monthly allowance for her 1 million followers in explanatory video on TikTok, in which the video over 6.7 million views and over 355,000 likes. She began by differentiating between the two type of purchases she makes and the respective budgets. General shopping allowance is $5,000 per month, while she gets $15,000 for luxury and designer buys.
well, for starters, the fact that you have $230,000 in disposable income
A month.
to just spend is insane. That's more than some people make in their
years,
lives.
yeah.
Ever.
Like, wow. I mean, the Arabs have so much money, it's insane.
Give the
New
gold back.
scan shows massive structures beneath Kefra pyramid. Last week, researchers in Italy.
Can you just reread that, please?
Did I say it wrong? New scan shows
No, I said
massive.
Zulu, nigga.
You ready?
The L was silent.
New scan shows massive structures beneath Kefra pyramid. Am I saying Kefra or is it Kefra?
It's okay. Just keep going.
I don't know. I don't know what's in front of you, so I don't know if you're just saying it correctly. This guy sounds like he does.
It's okay. It's fine.
Last week, researchers in Italy presented bombshell research which claimed to have discovered multi-thousand-foot tall wells and chambers underground beneath the Khafre or Khafre, however the hell you say it, pyramid. Should I continue?
That's the headline.
That's what I got. I mean,
Did
there's
they
more
not know
to
that-
it, but I'm
did
trying
they not
to.
know there was stuff under there before? This is like this is news to people.
Yes, it is news to people.
I guess so.
I mean, we could have told you guys
But I
that.
thought the Egyptologists knew everything.
You're funny.
I thought like the Egyptologists could tell us about like everything. So why is this news? Why is this surprising that there's? Oh, that's right, because they don't know that it's not their culture.
Dun dun dun.
Huh. What a surprise. What a surprise. Do they have like Asiatology?
No.
Do they have like Americatology?
They don't.
Do they have like Irelandology?
Nope.
Do they have Icelandology?
No.
Why? It's so interesting
I
to
bet
me.
you if we go there and dig up their ancestors' graves,
Like why?
Big problem.
Why do they have like only one particular region of the world? Like why do they dedicate a whole specific aspect of academia to studying it? Well, we'll leave you guys with that. Next.
Amazon, Google, Meta, and I think it's Doback goal to triple nuclear capacity. Tech giants and other major energy users such as Amazon, Google, Meta, Doe, I think, I'm not too sure how you say that, and etc. have signed a pledge supporting the goal of at least tripling global nuclear capacity by 2050. The pledge says that despite ongoing energy efficiencies and optimization efforts, energy demand in many industries is expected to increase significant in the coming years in order to support growing economies. I'm gonna leave it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say to that. That's not surprising. Next.
Trump administration no longer requires ban on segregated facilities in government contracts.
What does that mean?
The Trump administration is no longer requiring an explicit prohibition of segregation facilities in new government contracts. Segregation is still illegal in the U.S., and the memo states contractors are still subjective to laws on civil rights and non-discrimination. But the directive from the GSA, which manages federal property and sources contracting options for other agencies, came in response to one of President Trump's executive orders aimed at rolling back diversity, equity, and inclusions in the federal government.
So they no longer require, they want segregation to come back? Is that what they're saying?
Saying that they don't want it to come back.
They don't want, okay,
It's not.
cool. Good for the
But
Trump
from
administration.
what I remember, like during the whole like situation of COVID, they were trying to re-manifest segregation, right? With like the identification cards when it came towards being vaccinated or not vaccinated. So I think they're just trying to make sure that the science is sound when it comes towards our own ideologies behind segregation, right?
You know what I think? I don't think segregation ever really left. I think what America has done in terms of convincing people to like their condition is they've have this way of inclusion, because let's be for real, segregation only ended because it just made more economic sense to have black people and people of color join the economy in certain ways. We spend a lot more. It's a reality. Now, if you look at a store like Target, they have sections specifically for a specific demographic of people in terms of like, if you look at like the women's products for like your hair, kinky, curly, this and that, it's in a segregated section in Target. So to me, I think segregation has always been there and it's still there, but it's there in a very, very disguised way where they make you feel included. But if we're being real, America as a whole is a European country built on slavery and immigration. As a European country built on slavery and immigration, the people who come as immigrants or people who were formerly enslaved will never have the same social class or same social standing as the people who colonized the country. It's just not going to happen. So there's always going to be some kind of segregation to some degree. It's just been a lot more subtle. So I don't really understand if the article is talking about them bringing it back or preventing it. But if it's preventing it, it's bullshit because it's already there. If it's bringing it back, then they're just being a little bit more blunt and open with it right now.
Next one. Patient cured of sickle cell anemia with innovative gene therapy. Sebastian Buzel, a 20-year-old, becomes the first patient from New York to be cured of sickle cell anemia, SCD, using a groundbreaking gene therapy. He received, I can't say that word.
It's okay. I think we got the gist.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only way we're going to find out if it's real or not is if it actually works in like a couple years. Then we'll see. Other than that, it might be bullshit.
Snow White controversy. Rachel Zegler's social media posts blame for Snow White backlash and low box office performance. On August 12th, 2024, 3 days after Rachel hit the stage at Disney D23 fan event to introduce the first official trailer of Snow White, she thanked supporters effusively. I'm sorry.
Thanked. It's okay. We're with you. Just keep going.
In an X post for deriving the teaser to 120 million views in 24 hours. 1 minute later, she added an afterthought in the same thread, and always remember free Palestine.
Oh, that's right. The lady that was interviewing her was Israeli. Right?
This is new
I
news
saw
to
a
me.
post.
I don't care for
post
Snow
about
White
this.
or any Disney-related movies.
Yeah, me neither. But the girl is what I'm talking about. She was being interviewed by the lady who plays Wonder Woman.
Yeah, Gal Gadot.
Yeah, she's Israeli. So she did that on purpose in front of her. Said "Free Palestine" in front of her. That's why it's so controversial.
Okay, so this one in particular, I think is very interesting because when you look at like Disney and Disney's whole basis is based on inclusion and like a very liberal type of way of doing things. So where does the political spectrum fall on human life? Because what I find interesting is whose life has more value in terms of a human life?
The dog.
Huh?
The dogs.
A dog?
Yeah.
You think a dog has more life or has more value than a human being's life?
Go outside and kick a dog. See what they do to you.
Yeah, he'll go to jail real fast. You kick another human being, then they'll be like, what happened? You kick a dog.
No questions asked.
You get him. But with that being said, I think that it's interesting because when you look at the way the value is placed on a Jewish life versus a Muslim life, because that's really what it is that it comes down to if you view a Jewish life having more value than a Muslim life. Because when you look at Disney's platform, where Disney is trying to literally make sure that everyone is included and everyone is represented in everything that they do at all times, while simultaneously never, ever making sure that anyone feels like they're not included, then I have to ask you, which one do you care about more? Because that's what it really comes down to. is that if you're going to say it's a controversy for her to say that what Israel is doing in Gaza is wrong, then I have to ask you then your platform and what you stand on and what you claim to be is bullshit.
You know who owns these networks and these stations. Dare I say it? A choo-choo. Choo-choo-choo. You can't say anything about a choo-choo-choo.
I don't know what a choo-choo-choo is.
You know what a choo-choo-choo is.
I don't.
You can't say anything about the choo-choo-choo. That's why
What's
I'm
a
saying
choo-choo-choo?
choo-choo-choo. You know.
What the fuck is a choo-choo-choo?
You can't say anything about these people at all. The Jews.
What?
You gonna let me? You want me to say it?
I didn't know that.
You just, it's true, bro. You can't really say anything about Jews. You can't.
Alexis is like, this is where I am going to leave.
Look, they say when it's somebody else, it's a problem. When it's a Jew, it's a coincidence. That's all I gotta say.
Israel declares ceasefire over as it launches airstrikes in Gaza, killing hundreds.
Damn. Well, I mean, what else is new? Look, America and America's allies don't give a shit, and they just will always continue to do as they want to do, when they want to do. So what else is new? Yeah.
South African mother and boyfriend charged with trafficking 6-year-old daughter. A young South African girl who disappeared last year, age 6, was allegedly sought by a traditional healer for her eyes and fair complexions. A court has heard. This is among the allegations that have emerged at the ongoing trial of Jocelyn Smith's mother, Kelly Smith, who has been accused of orchestrating her kidnapping. Prosecutors later accused her of having sold, delivered, or exchanged for the 6-year-old and lied about her disappearance.
So the mom...
I meant to say orchestrating, by the way.
The mom sold the daughter
Yeah. Yeah.
to be used so someone could use her body parts?
Yes, son. The mom sold the daughter as an offering to a Sangoma.
What the fuck is a Sangoma?
A Sangoma is a South African priest.
That's what that article is?
That's what that article is.
The mom sold the daughter
Yep.
to be used as an offering?
Yes.
And what are they doing about it? What's South Africa doing about it?
They're charging her for sex trafficking. For trafficking.
Human trafficking.
That's it? Are they charging her or has she been convicted?
It says that she's being charged with trafficking.
All right. Yeah, that's crazy. Okay.
Yeah.
What else?
Apparently, white people and fair-skinned people are a huge spiritual tool in some Setian circles. Wild.
California woman facing murder charge after man dies in paid fetish encounter. A 31-year-old woman has been charged with second-degree murder in connection to the 2023 death of an Escondido man during a paid sexual fetish encounter, which has allegedly filmed for her OnlyFans account. A resident was arrested by the Escondido. How do you say that? What am I saying right now? Police.
I don't know, bro.
Police last month following a months-long investigation into fatal encounter between her and 56-year-old Michael Dell. According to the arrest warrant for Ryla Sordam, Dell suffocated to death while a bag was placed over his head and secured with duct tape for at least 8 minutes during their interaction.
Bro, this is crazy. It's like
Stupid games get stupid prizes. Like, I mean, I don't know. Did they not have a safe gesture?
Bro, I think he was dead the moment she started tying him up. When I say that, I don't mean he died literally that moment.
How much does her OnlyFans cost? Like, how much money did she make? Again, how much does a human life cost?
Guess not.
The fact, what's crazy is like he paid her to do this.
He paid her. She
Yeah.
didn't pay him.
No, bro.
He wasn't.
paid
He
her.
wasn't a featured player in her OnlyFans account. He paid her. Wow, that's crazy.
But why would you tie up the man's mouth? Like his nose? Like, come on.
No, there was a bag over his head, and then it was secured with duct tape. I'm sure his hands and everything were tied down for him not to rip the bag. But
Wait, so then that's it? She just like put the bag over his head and then
Right.
duct taped it and then tied him up and then that was it?
She had to have duct taped it like
right,
this.
exactly.
You know what I mean?
So
Why would you?
But then that was it though? And then what? She just had him on video while he was just tied up and then duct tape?
I guess so. I'm not too sure what some of these
This is what I'm
people
saying.
are
The
into when it
moment
comes towards
You
BDSM.
wrapped his head with the duct tape, and he started going. You should have known something was wrong.
Yeah, but that was probably the whole thing is that she's going to duct tape him and he's
No, San. She was supposed to leave some kind of opening, like here or something.
I don't know. I mean,
There's no way. It's just common sense. For 8 minutes?
I don't fucking know. That's what I'm saying. How much was her OnlyFans? She must have made a lot of money.
Who knows? Trump's attack plan shared on single chat. At a Senate hearing yesterday, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, and the Director of the Central Intelligence Agency, John Ratcliffe, were both asked about the signal chat, to which Jeffrey, the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, was inadvertently invited by the National Security Advisor, Michael Waltz. There was no classified material that was shared in that signal group, Gabbard told members of the Senate Intelligence Committee.
Yeah, I mean this in general is pretty hilarious because they had like a group chat and they added the editor of a magazine into it by accident, and then literally he then shared like the plans that they had because they're bombing Yemen. Like they're bombing another country. So the US is bombing another country and they added a journalist into their group chat while they were discussing what they were going to do.
Why do y'all have a group chat, first of all? What happened to like Oval Office meetings?
Because it's
Zoom.
It's 2025, bro.
Zoom, maybe? A group chat? Really? I don't know, man.
It was like, it's no different from when they had the meeting with the president of Ukraine, right? And then they made it live. It was very
That was strange. Like, why would you make this live?
right. It was very absurd. Next one, Congressman Van Drew urges New Jersey Turnpike Authority to reconsider contract with CCP-linked company. It is completely unacceptable that a company with connections to the CCP could be given access to vast amounts of sensitive U.S. traffic data, including driving habits, travel patterns, and potential infrastructure vulnerabilities, said Congressman Van Drew. This is a direct threat to both our national security and the privacy of millions of Americans. The CCP has repeatedly demonstrated its willingness to exploit foreign partnerships to advance its own strategic interests, often at the expense of U.S. security. Handing over critical infrastructure operations to a company tied to China is reckless and unnecessary when American-based companies are fully capable of handling these services. The New Jersey Turnpike Authority must consider this contract immediately and put American interests first. Interests first. I cannot.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy that they're selling all of the data to China. Because isn't that why they banned TikTok to begin with? But then they're going to give everyone's Easy Pass information to China? Because that's what they said was the reason why they didn't want TikTok in the U.S. Is because the fact that TikTok can access everyone's information, and then they actually sell it to the Chinese government because the Chinese government has the ability to rule over ByteDance, which is the parent company that owns TikTok. But what's interesting is, in actuality, you know that TikTok is not a social media platform in China per se.
Yeah.
It's actually like Amazon. Like, it's the hugest e-commerce platform in China. So if they're like, hey, you can't have this in here, like meaning you can't have this in the U.S., it doesn't mean anything to them, because at the end of the day, there's such a huge e-commerce platform in China that it's not gonna be affected. Like, they're not gonna be affected at all. So I mean, it just sounds like there's just a huge game of money being played.
I also think, to a degree, the toll roads and a lot of the roads and infrastructure isn't necessarily, again, government owned per se. So when we say America is doing it, not necessarily. It's like private individual corporations who are making these deals because they can, because they're the ones who own it. So they could technically do whatever they want. They're going to work with whoever they want to work with. If they don't feel like working with American companies, they don't technically have to.
No, they don't have
They're private industry.
Right. A new coronavirus has just been discovered. Should we be worried? A new coronavirus has been identified in bats in China. Although the virus has the potential to affect humans, no real-world cases have been identified. It's been identified in bats that use the same receptors to enter human cells as the COVID-19, as the SARS-CoV-2 virus, which causes COVID-19. The discovery raises the possibility that this virus could someday affect humans. However, it does not enter human cells as readily as SARS does. There have been no documented humans infections so far.
So they're just like studying bats to see which one of you are going to give us diseases?
Isn't that what they did in the first place to make COVID?
Yeah, that's what it sounds like to me. Like, if you're studying the thing and then they're talking about its use on its cells and how it affects human bodies, obviously you're probably the one creating the situation. But hey, what do I know?
And to wrap it up for today's episode with a proverb, don't set sail on
let's wrap this
someone
up. She's
else's
angry.
star.
Say that again.
For our proverb today, don't set sail on someone else's star.
He's saying
Don't set sail on someone else?
else's star, like basically the same.
Don't set sail
Don't set
on
sail
someone else's star.
on someone else's star.
Oh, I see.
Are we supposed to like comment?
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Yeah, we are. We're supposed to. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Yeah, live your life. Don't live someone else's life.
Yeah, self-explanatory.
Yeah. You have anything to say
Anything to
about
chime
that,
in?
Alexis? Doja Cat?
I agree.
All right, cool. Well, that's been another episode of the Gated Gates podcast. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. We hope you guys continue to tune in. Again, it's been great to be back with you guys, and we'll be back with you guys, when we're back with you guys. We don't know when that's going to be. We're not going to make any promises. We're not going to say when that is going to be. But just make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back with you guys soon. With that being said, have a good night.
Peace. Idiharu. Cut.
Is it?
Put on end credits, but I can just stop.